Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We are back with another incredible story of incredible claims and fantastical uh, history changing significance if the stories are true. But are they? I suppose the longer down this rabbit hole that I remain, the longer that the longer I remain down this rabbit hole, the more skeptical I have become over time. And some would say with good reason for that. Uh, if you've followed the journey here so far, you have found that you may have noticed that almost every rabbit hole we go deep down to find the truth about these stories, we find scams, con artists, fake evidence, fake sources, people using ridiculous sources like child molesters or imaginary sources. Why is it that so many of these stories begin with an anonymous, mysterious source that no one else can talk to, just the person selling the story? No one else can interview, just the person selling the story. No one else can ask questions about the story to that originator of the story, just the person who's using the anonymous source to sell the story and often make thousands and thousands of dollars based on an anonymous source. Were they vetted? Were they investigated? Did anybody check to see if they are a trustworthy individual, worthy of belief? In most cases, what I have found is there's no vetting, there's no investigatory work, there's no determination of a source's trustworthiness. Apparently, the only criteria that many of these UFO hucksters have when deciding what kinds of stories to talk about and sell are, will people buy this and can I make money from this? If the answer is yes, most of them run with their, let's just say, less than credible stories based on shaky, if any, evidence. And Art's Parts is one of those stories. Now, it should be noted that one of the reasons I am here is because of Art Bell. For those unaware, Art Bell was a pioneer of this thing. And most would agree that he literally created the genre of the paranormal talk show. And I have been following the subject of tonight's story, Art's Parts, since it began. I listened to this all take place originally on Art Bell's show. And I think because of that, I have a unique perspective. Now, one thing that's important that you definitely need to know is that Art Bell himself decided that these parts were nothing out of the ordinary. After investing a little bit of time trying to get someone to look at them and give him some more information of a scientific basis. So let's get into it. I'm checking in with the live chat. I want to thank, it looks like we've got quite a crowd tonight. Thank you, all of you, for being here. If you're new to the channel, please do give us a chance, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll know when we're having live chats. We always make time for the live chat. We'll have a period of questions and comments after a presentation that I think will enlighten you. After tonight, if you've ever wondered about this story, commonly called Art's Parts, after tonight, you'll be fully informed. You will have all of the evidence and you can make up your own mind. Are these really bits and pieces of a UFO that crashed in Roswell, or something else? Let's get into it, friends. So I've actually had to write this out because I wanted to be sure to get my thoughts correct. So I will be checking in and out with the live chat successes here Lead chat room moderator, reminding everybody fair use. This video may contain transformative or derivative work for the purpose of education, commentary, and criticism. And yes, we will be sharing some things. There's unidentified S4 with a kind and generous $1.99 super sticker. And by the way, we read each and every single super chat and acknowledge every single person that's throwing some support our way. If you want to do that, there's a money button down there in the live chat. Otherwise, you can use PayPal or Cash App to throw a couple of bucks in our hat, and the instructions to do that are in the live chat. Now, the story of Art's Parts really begins on the Art Bell Show. And I listened to all of this unfold, friends. And at the time, I was a true believer. So this story is only second to my love for the Bob Lazar story growing up. It was Bob Lazar's story that really got me very, very interested in these topics, and my own experience earlier than Bob's story. And the next story that really, really got me riveted was this Art's Parts story. Our story begins on April 10th, 1996. A mysterious figure, an anonymous figure who wished to remain anonymous, contacted Art Bell, who, as I said, is famous for essentially creating the genre of paranormal talk radio shows, host of Coast to Coast AM, Midnight in the Desert, Dreamland, and many other radio programs, all centered around this paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, and all manner of strangeness. Now, back to the person who sent Art Bell a mysterious package and a letter. The person who to this day is still anonymous. He told an amazing story of his grandfather being present at a UFO crash retrieval operation in Roswell in 1947. It's important to note, and I have noticed this, that if you want to con people with a fake alien story or a fake story about flying saucers or anything like that, it's often good to attach your story to accepted mythology. By 1996, most people interested in this had already accepted the Roswell mythology. It wasn't a weather balloon that crashed in Roswell in 1947. It was an alien spacecraft, and there were even bodies, according to some witnesses. But that mythology was already accepted. So this person is attaching these mysterious fragments to the story of Roswell. Now, some would argue that lends credibility to the story, but others may argue that it is someone simply attaching their hoax onto accepted UFO mythology so that it would be more easily accepted. We have seen time and time again people do this with Roswell. We've got the Roswell slides. That was a hoax. We've got alien autopsy. That was a hoax. We've got alien interview. That was a hoax, and more. We've got the Roswell rock. Many believe that's a hoax. All of these fake stories, well, I guess the jury's still out on the Roswell rock, honestly, but all of these fake stories, certainly alien autopsy, certainly alien interviews, certainly the Roswell slides were all hoaxes, and they all globbed onto Roswell. And then they added new bits and pieces of information that was supposed to be related to the Roswell crash. I believe that in many cases this is purposeful because people already accept that Roswell was a real event and aliens crash landed there. So why not start your story there with a story that's already been accepted by most of the people interested in the phenomenon of UFOs and aliens and crash retrievals? So this mysterious person on April 10th, 1996 is when Art Bell received the first package. He forwarded some metal samples that he claimed came from the Roswell crash. Those first samples, I'm just going to jump right to the chase. Those first samples that he sent Art Bell turned out to be 100% ordinary earthly aluminum after they were analyzed. Now, Linda Moulton Howe, of course, enters this picture because at the time she was working for Art Bell part-time. I didn't like it either. In fact, when he started having her, I said the whole credibility of a show just took a nosedive because he's going to have this huckster. And in free and open, I'm always honest with my audience. I have not liked Linda Moulton Howe as far back as 1996. And I remember in the 90s when she started attaching herself to Art Bell and working with and for him, I wasn't happy about it. And neither were a lot of people, because even back then, a lot of us realized that Linda Moulton Howe sold garbage. Now, of course, since Linda Moulton Howe was working part-time for Art Bell at the time he received this package, she was involved with this story from the very start. And it's very important that you keep in mind that the original source of these so-called Roswell artifacts to this day remains anonymous and unknown. No one's allowed to interview them. No one's allowed to vet them. No one's allowed to check if their grandfather really was in the military or was stationed anywhere near Roswell, New Mexico. We have to take all of this on my favorite of the methods of the UFO con artists. Trust me, dude. An anonymous source told me this. Trust me, dude. And you'll pardon me if I don't trust Linda Moulton Howe as far as I could throw her. Now, I believe it is fair to say that Linda Moulton Howe has been caught using completely fake anonymous sources time and time again. Most recently claiming her high-ranking anonymous source in the aerospace industry sent her 100% genuine alien photos. But those photos, as we revealed here when we revealed this hoax, these photos turned out to be an artist's creation that he created for a 2008 fictional series that he was putting on his blog, a fictional story. Now, she used these images completely without that artist's permission, even slapped her own copyright on images she had no right to copyright, and made thousands and thousands of dollars in YouTube ad revenue telling people those were real alien pictures. Later, when caught by us, we here at Truth Seekers have the exclusive on catching her selling those fake alien pictures. And by the way, that's the second time we caught her selling fake alien pictures, making thousands of dollars claiming alien pictures were real when she took them from artwork. So we covered that whole hoax here. And to date, Linda has not given any of that money back. And to date, even after our expose exposing her for what she did, she has not even apologized to her viewers who sent her super chats during several broadcasts. She was claiming that her source, her anonymous source, sent her these so-called real alien pictures. There was also the recent case when I believe she used a fake source again. Some mysterious anonymous source who claimed that he went on secret moon missions, and Linda lapped it up. Linda claimed that that anonymous source gave her a picture of a, quote, genuine gray alien taken on the moon, which she then sold behind a paywall, again, making thousands and thousands of dollars. But it turned out in that case that Linda's anonymous source actually sent her a picture of an alien from a 2005 video game cover called Area 51. Great shoot 'em up. You run around and shoot aliens on Area 51. Some time ago, I believe she also used a fake Navy SEAL for another anonymous source. That was related to her provably fake stories about aliens and alien spacecraft buried under the ice in Antarctica. And I just want to take a moment to mention that I always love when these UFO celebrities come out with these stories of alien spacecraft buried under the ice in Antarctica, or whole cities buried under the ice, because all of them have the means, the motive, and the opportunity. They all have the money to charter a flight and go to Antarctica and show us the spaceship in Antarctica if they know exactly where it is. None of them ever do. Some people have argued with me, but I found a Antarctica tour company that will take you in a helicopter anywhere you want to go in Antarctica. So why don't these UFO hucksters who are huckstering fake stories about spaceships under the ice ever go there and show us the spaceship? Show us the spaceship, Linda. No, instead they make tens of thousands of dollars telling you there's a spaceship there without going there and proving it is. And by the way, they can go there and prove it's there. Now, how do I know that that anonymous source in her fake Antarctica story was really fake? Well, it turns out that in an interview she was dumb enough to leave in a documentary, she asked that anonymous source, who was supposed to be a Navy SEAL, what his rank was. He gave a rank that is an Army rank. That is certainly not in any way, shape, or form a Navy rank, nor a rank that any Navy SEAL on planet Earth would have. Facts matter. Now, you would think upon hearing him give a fake rank that's not even a Navy rank, that she would stop using him as a source and apologize for putting out fake stories and fake information. But she did not. Instead, she went right ahead selling his fake stories and again made thousands and thousands of dollars off of that provably fake story. So here we see at least 3 examples where Linda Moulton Howe has been caught using fake anonymous sources. My friends, history matters. And the fact that she has been caught using at least 3 fake anonymous sources, or at the very least, she's been caught using anonymous sources who fed her 100% provably fake information or stories that she didn't catch. This, my friends, means that any claims, any and all claims coming from someone like her, Linda Moulton Howe, we should never, ever, her claims should never, ever be trusted. But rather, her claims should be scrutinized even more based on her long history of using fake sources, using, I believe, made up anonymous sources, and peddling 100% provably fake stories and disinformation for profit. So as we continue in our presentation, I'm going to ask you to keep in mind that the entire story, it starts with Art Bell, but really who took this story and ran with it and sold it to the public was Linda Moulton Howe, who we can demonstrate is a garbage peddler who sells fake stories for money and has the vetting and discernment skills. Apparently, she has the vetting and discernment skills that are apparently worse than a 4-year-old child, despite bragging that she's an award-winning journalist. Friends, she is not a journalist. She is a garbage peddler who scams her audiences and the general public for money with provably fake information each and every chance she gets. So again, back to Art's parts, a mysterious anonymous source who even after all this time has never been identified or vetted by anyone sent Art Bell and Linda these materials. These metal, magnesium, and bismuth fragments. It was aluminum, magnesium, and bismuth. That's what these fragments were made of. So Linda jumped in immediately in 1996 and started selling the story that these were pieces of an alien spacecraft that crashed at Roswell almost immediately after Art Bell received them. She did so with a totally unknown anonymous source making these unsubstantiated, uninvestigated, and uncorroborated and unproven claims. She did not investigate any claims made by this anonymous sender. She did not verify that person's claims that their grandfather was in the military. She did not verify that the grandfather was stationed around Roswell and even could have been involved with the Roswell event. She vetted nothing. She investigated nothing. She verified nothing. Instead, she just repeated the information this unknown anonymous source said in his letters to Art Bell and ran, folks, ran to sell the story. Now, I believe it would be a fair assessment to say that Linda Moulton Howe has made tens of thousands of dollars selling this story of the alleged Roswell debris. We also need to keep in mind that she sold the story to Tom DeLonge, who purchased some of these parts from her for some $30,000. So we get to see just how much money Linda Moulton Howe has made pushing this story. For years and years and years, friends, she sold the story of these arts parts at UFO conventions, telling the story of them. Many of those conventions paid her thousands and thousands of dollars in speaking fees. And again, she did zero investigatory work to verify the claims made by this anonymous source. She verified or vetted nothing. She just ran to sell the story as a true story at UFO conferences. Now, it's important also to note that the first scientist she had examined the metal fragments said that they were all of normal earthly origin and that they were nothing out of the ordinary. But we'll examine his findings in more minute detail. The original scientist who looked at them, commented that he could reproduce them, and he did. But since they weren't 100% exact to the original parts, Linda Moulton Howe did not accept that. In fact, Linda Moulton Howe did not like that first scientist's findings. So do you know what she did? She buried the report of his findings. You won't find it in her books, friends, near as I can tell. But it's been a while since I've checked, so somebody is free to correct me on that. I do know that she never, ever spoke about the original scientist who she hired to look at these fragments. And I believe there's a reason for that. It's because he said they're normal earthly metals. 1 second, friends. Yeah. Now I'm a little hyper vigilant about the technical issues, so just bear with me for one moment, friends. Okay, 1 second. Okay, all right. Okay, back to what I was saying. I apologize, friends. All right, so let me find my place now. Okay, so Linda did not like that original scientist's findings, so she went to another. Perhaps she went to multiple other people who are perhaps less credible science people, until she found somebody that said they exhibited strange properties. But the strange properties that this person said they exhibited, it's very problematic. Because you see, even those assessments of people who said that these arts parts exhibited strange properties, even those assessments turned out to be provably false, misleading, and extremely problematic. Interestingly, one of the people she turned to was Travis Taylor, who claims the objects moved under super high voltage electrical load. But we'll explore more on that later. You may recognize the name Travis Taylor as the Skinwalker Ranch profiteer from the television show. And his involvement in this situation was to test the materials, shoot 500,000 volts into them, saw that they wiggled or moved a tiny little bit, and report to Linda Moulton Howe, apparently these must be genuine fragments, or apparently these fragments exhibit strange properties. And again, we're going to break down those claims because they're extremely problematic. But the involvement of Travis Taylor, UFO profiteer, doesn't surprise me. I didn't really know much of him at the time, but later I would recognize him. Oh, he's the guy that looked at Art's parts and helped Linda sell that garbage story. Yeah, that may explain to you, friends, why when people ask me about the Skinwalker television show, I just say, I don't watch it. It's not credible. This is why, friends. If Travis Taylor will help Linda Moulton Howe push this pile of garbage, he'll help anybody push any pile of garbage. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. So he claimed the objects move under very high voltage electrical load. We will explore that in a moment. The other person she had examine the fragments found them again to be normal earthly materials. And that was none other than TTSA techno scammer Hal Putoff. More on that later. So essentially the start of the Art's part story really is this woman, Linda Moulton Howe, who basically believes anything she is told by anyone about aliens or UFOs, who vets nothing, apparently investigates nothing, and has been caught using fake anonymous sources many, many times while just running with the story from an unknown anonymous source. This, as I mentioned before, is the dude, trust me, my anonymous source said this, school of ufology that many people now use to scam stupid people out of money and super chats. My friends, this is not science. This is not investigation, nor is it investigative journalism. This is grifting and conning people for money and super chats with information that is most likely false. All right, so we are going to get deeper into this. We're going to go all the way down this rabbit hole. I want to share with you, you can find on Art Bell's old website the actual original letters that this anonymous source sent Art Bell, which, of course, Linda Moulton Howe got a hold of and ran with to sell as soon as she could. So I'm going to cite fair use. This is transformative work. And I also, before I forget, I want to thank Art Bell for inspiring me. And I want to thank Art Bell for igniting my curiosity into these topics. I had insomnia my entire life, couldn't sleep. Art Bell's show was awesome. I would put it on, hear interesting stories from interesting people, and slowly drift off to sleep. It was dreamland for me, and I miss Art Bell's show every day. I have listened to his entire archive probably 3 or 4 times. Every once in a while, I put it away for a while. I have the entire collection of everything, I believe every show he's ever done. So I put it away for a few years, and then I suppose when I'm feeling nostalgic or want to be inspired or remember some of the old stories, I pull it out and start listening to it all again in sequence. It's quite an archive. And by the way, a friend gifted me that archive. I'm not sure if it's complete, but it is thousands and thousands of hours of Art Bell's shows. Art Bell is missed terribly in the world of the paranormal and the strange. He was the originator of these type of shows, and I still don't think that he's given the respect that he deserved. As soon as he died, all these people try to jump and get his job, including George Snorri Norrie, who did get his job. That guy's so boring, he'll put you to sleep in 5 minutes. And let's see, Jimmy Church tried to get that seat. I think we've got George Knapp trying to get that seat or having some involvement with Coast to Coast. None of them can hold a candle to the best and the original Art Bell. We miss you, Art. All right, so this is from Wayback Machine. Unfortunately, Art Bell's website is no longer online. And by the way, I have archived this entire website, all of it, so that in case it vanishes from Wayback Machine, which happens, I will still have a copy of Art Bell's once website. Now, I'm not sure if I don't believe if I click on these images, we can get the close-up isn't much of it's not any bigger. But these are some images of the original parts that were sent here. And I'm going to do a blow up and make these available on my Twitter later today. They need to be resampled, not resized, and it's going to take a bit of time. Didn't have time before broadcast, but I want to be sure, though, that we get into some of the minutia of the letter. Here's the original letter. It was dated April 10th, 1996, so Art Bell would have gotten this shortly after April 10th. He says, "Dear Mr. Bell, I've followed your broadcast over the last year or so, and I have been considering whether or not to share with you and your listeners some information related to the Roswell UFO crash. My grandfather was a member of the retrieval team sent to the crash site just after the incident was reported. He died in 1974, but not before he sat down with some of us and talked about the incident. I am currently serving in the military and hold a security clearance and do not wish to, quote, go public, unquote, and risk losing my career and commission." Ooh. This sounds dramatic already, doesn't it, friends? Nonetheless, I would like to briefly tell you what my own grandfather told me about Roswell. In fact, I enclosed for your safekeeping, quote, samples, unquote, that were in possession of my grandfather until he died, and which I have had since his own estate was settled. As I understand it, they came from the UFO debris and were among a large batch subsequently sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio from New Mexico. Now, before we go on with this letter, it's important to note that the actual debris that Art Bell and Linda Moulton Howe got bore almost no resemblance to what the original Roswell witnesses described as the UFO debris. There was no memory metal, there was no I-beams, none of that. It was very, very different from what any of the on-the-record real Roswell witnesses who saw the debris said it was and described it as. Just want to make sure that we establish that. He goes on to say, my grandfather was able to appropriate them and stated that the metallic samples are the purest extract aluminum. You will note that they appear old and tempered, and they have been placed in tissue paper and in baggies for posterity. I've had them since 1974, and after considerable thought and reflection, I give them to you. Feel free to share them with any of your friends in the UFO research community. I've listened to many people over the years discuss Roswell and the crash events as reported by many who were either there or have heard about it from eyewitnesses. The recent Roswell movie was similar to my grandfather's own account, but a critical element was left out, and that is an element which I would like to share. As my granddad stated, the team arrived at the crash site just after the AAF-USAF reported, and this is a problem here. United States Army Air Force reported the ground zero location. They found 2 dead occupants hurled free of the disc. A lone surviving occupant was found within the disc, and it was apparent its leg was broken. There was minimal radiation contamination and was quickly dispersed with a water solvent wash as soon as the occupant was dispatched for medical assistance and isolation. The bodies were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for dispersal. The debris was also loaded into 3 trucks, which finished the onload just before the sunset. Granddad was part of the team that went with the surviving occupant. The occupant communicated via telepathic means. It spoke perfect English and communicated the following. The disc was a probe ship dispatched from a launch ship that was stationed at the dimensional gateway to the Terran solar system 32 light years from Terra that had been conducting operations on Terra for over 100 years. The disc was, another group was exploring Mars and Lo. Each probe ship carried a crew of 3. A launch ship had a crew of 100. The disc that crashed had collided with a meteor in the orbit of Terra. And I just want to say, who says Terra? I found that to be odd. Most people just say Earth, right? I don't know that somebody would call it Terra. I would just call it planet Earth. So would most people. Why is this person calling it Terra? Just one of the strange oddities I found in the language here. He goes on to say, they were attempting to compensate for a flight vector, but because of a collision, the inner atmospheric propulsion system malfunctions, and the occupants sent out a distress signal to their companions on Mars. The launch ship commander made the decision to authorize an attempted soft landing on the New Mexican desert. At the same time, the inner atmospheric propulsion system had a massive electrical burnout, and the disc was soon virtually helpless. There was another option available to the occupants, but it involved activating the dimensional power plant for deep space travel. However, it opens an energy vortex around the disc for 1,500 miles in all directions. Activating the dimensional power plant would have resulted in the annihilation of the states of New Mexico, Arizona, California, and portions of Mexico. Possibly even further states would have been affected. Thus, the occupants chose to ride the ship down and hope for the best. They literally sacrificed their own lives rather than destroy the populations within their proximity. The dimensional power plant was self-destructed, and the inner atmospheric propulsion system was also deactivated to prevent the technology from falling into the hands of the Terrans, again with the Terrans. This was done in accordance with their standing orders in regard to any compromise with contact experiences. Granddad spent a total of 26 weeks in the team that examined and debriefed the lone survivor of the Roswell crash. Granddad's affiliation with the project ended when the occupant was to be transported to a long-term facility. He was placed on board a United States Air Force transport aircraft that was to be sent to Washington, D.C. The aircraft and all aboard disappeared under mysterious circumstances en route to Washington, D.C. Now, here's a problem because he basically says 26 weeks after 1947, the alien was transported. Then he says it was the United States Air Force that transported the aircraft. That's a problem. There may not have been an Air Force. There was the Army Air Corps, not an Air Force at that time. It's a little thing, but facts matter. Why would somebody make a mistake like that? Not sure. Especially a military man should know his military history and know that's a problem. But it is what it is. So the aircraft and all on board disappeared under mysterious and disturbing circumstances. If I may interest you, that 3 fighter aircraft dispatched to investigate a distress call from the transport experienced many electrical malfunctioning systems failures as they entered the airspace of the transport's last reported location. No crash or debris of the transport was ever found. The team was disbanded. Well, I realize I have likely shocked you with this bizarre and incredible account, and seeking to remain unknown likely doesn't do anything for my credibility, eh? And the metal samples only will likely add to the controversy. But I know you will take this with a grain of salt, and I don't blame you, Mr. Bell. I just hope you can understand my reasons and my own desire to maintain my career and commission. I am passing through South Carolina with an operational readiness mobility exercise, and will mail this just prior to that exercise, possibly from the Charlestown area. I will listen to your broadcast to receive any acknowledgement or confirmation that you have received this package. This letter and the contents of the package are given to you with the hope that it helps contribute to the discussion of discussion on the subject of UFO phenomena. I agree with Neil Armstrong, a good friend of mine. So this guy's a good friend of Neil Armstrong, who dared to say at the White House, no less, that there are things out there which boggle the mind and are far beyond our ability to comprehend. Signed, me, a friend. Now, I have a multitude of problems with this letter. First of all, some of the things mentioned in this letter could be verified if we knew dates and locations. He does not offer them. He mentions the United States Air Force transporting an alien at a time that the United States Air Force did not yet exist, I believe. That's a problem. And there's more problems with this. So it's important to note that the first letter included just aluminum samples. Art Bell and Linda Moulton Howe split the money to get the aluminum samples tested. They came back as very pure aluminum, but normal, earthly, ordinary materials. So then this person sends a second letter, and I'm just going to read you some excerpts from it, not the entire thing. I must say that I was somewhat surprised by the negative and closed-minded responses directed your way by some of your listeners. You seem to indicate that receiving the package has vastly upset your life, and in this, I would like to say that wasn't my intention. I offer my apologies. Further information regarding the Roswell crash and my grandfather's affiliation would likely be potentially beneficial in your efforts at correlation and verification. So this anonymous person sends Art the parts. The Art and Linda Moulton Howe test the parts. They're normal earthly metals. Well, now he's got to send another letter and give you more information. Granddad stated that their own analysis of the samples indicated it as a pure extract aluminum as a conductor for the electromagnetic fields created in propulsion systems. However, critically needed data was eliminated by the self-destruct mechanisms. Isn't that convenient? Oh, they need, in order to really figure out these fragments, we needed data that was in the self-destruct mechanisms of the disk vehicle itself. He goes on to say, furthermore, the occupant survivor of the crash refused to disclose technical information, despite a series of interrogative attempts to extract technological data. No means could be found to secure the information. Okay, so it goes on to say the disk was literally dissected, and it was discovered that the propulsion system had actually fused together the many interior components. They were control-type devices forged in the shape of an alien hand. Where have we seen that before? They had just seen that on television in the form of the alien autopsy, and now this person is saying the control devices were in the shape of an alien hand, which were to controls and activation surfaces. What is today, this part is interesting. What is today fiber optic technology was part and parcel of the alien technology within the control panels. Now that's interesting because I thought that the first person to claim that fiber optics came from the Roswell debris was Colonel Philip Corso in his book, The Day After Roswell. But here, this person, a year before publishing the publishing of his book, is saying the same thing. I find that interesting, and It made me wonder if maybe Philip Corso was testing the waters of his story by sending Art Bell an anonymous letter with some metal. Take from that what you will. Okay. So it goes on to say there were Westinghouse affiliated persons on the team, and Granddad always thought some of them had gone back with the knowledge and incorporated into their future research with the phone systems, right? It's interesting to note that they're saying the same thing, exact thing that Philip Corso said in his book 1 year later. Just want to point that out for historical significance. What does that mean? Does that mean that this letter may have been written by Phil Corso? I'm not aware of anyone else besides Phil Corso that ever said that fiber optic technology was basically stolen from Roswell crash debris and developed through back engineering, other than Phil Corso. But here, a year before his book came out, we have somebody saying the exact same thing. He goes on to say, I'm not likely to communicate again. My wife is concerned. Yeah. Concerned about what, right? All right. So, or that the intelligence agencies will put 2 and 2 together. So it is inadvisable to further communicate this information. I hope you understand my position. I could likely face a court-martial or sedition charges for stating some of this information and opinions. And here, where they say this is ridiculous. This person does not have firsthand knowledge of any of this stuff. This is stuff that his grandfather told him. So here is an amateur hour mistake made by whoever wrote this letter. Here's what he said. I could likely face a court-martial or sedition charges for stating some of this information and opinions. No, you couldn't. This person claimed that they had security clearance and they were in the military. Well, did you see the Roswell debris? No. Were you there? No. Then you're not violating any security oath by talking about something your grandfather told you about. He's passed away. This is a big, big problem. And that's not something that a real military person would make a mistake on. They know that if they talk about things they've seen during their duty that they're not supposed to talk about, that's a problem. But talking about things people told you? No, you're not going to get tried for treason for that. This is a huge problem and maybe some indicator that the person who actually wrote this letter was not in the military. A military person would know that this is a problem. Yeah, goes on to say, I hope your listeners understand that the subject of Roswell has great potential, and extrapolating the truth about UFOs, what has come to be known as a cosmic Watergate, is only the tip of an iceberg. That is, of course, Stanton Friedman's saying, cosmic Watergate. And one of the things I found interesting in all these letters is that except for the part about the fiber optics, there is nothing original that I can tell from a historical perspective in any of this. It is all repeated things that people already have said about Roswell, about crashes, about aliens. All of this is already out there information at the time these letters were written, with the exception, I suppose, of the example with the fiber optics. Now, if somebody can show me an example of somebody saying fiber optics came from the Roswell crash before 1996, please email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. We like to be historically accurate here. To the best of my knowledge, Philip Corso was the first to say that, and his book was first published, I believe, in 1997. Okay. This is the third letter. Now, he says he's not going to communicate anymore, but then we get a third letter, May 28th, 1996, is when it arrived. He says, I have listened with interest to the ongoing reports of the samples I sent your way. I noted that the researcher discussing the testing of the samples noted basically it is merely aluminum. Slight variations on the testing, but indistinguishable from, quote, normal, unquote, aluminum. And see, here's the thing. I believe that this person has sort of punked Art Bell because he's listening on the radio show. Okay, Art Bell and Linda Moulton Howe split the money that it costs to get the original aluminum samples tested. Comes back normal earthly aluminum. So then this person sends another letter right? And new samples that are not just aluminum. He says in his third letter, actually, this is precisely the same initial findings of Granddad's team. However, I neglected to include metallic samples of the exterior of the crashed Roswell disk. Keep in mind, Mr. Bell, that those are the last of Granddad's samples. They have sat for years inside a closet with his personal effects. And then he says, because of certain concerns, I will not be contacting you on this matter. Perhaps I am a bit paranoid, but I do have a family and career to think about. I hope you understand. Hope these last samples are helpful. And in the third letter included samples that turn out to be magnesium, comprised of magnesium and bismuth. And here we go again. We get another. How many times is this guy going to say, I'm not going to contact you again? Right? And that is really a problem, right? I'm not going to read you this entire thing. But basically what he says in the fourth letter is that in order to decipher how these fragments work, you need information acquired. You need information from the original ship's database. And he makes absolutely fantastical, ridiculous claims like they somehow translated an alien language in a very short amount of time. Right. And they got the data from an alien computer system and database about how these artifacts work. I call bullshit. Who's to say how an alien computer works? I'm a computer science guy. I'd love to see an alien computer, especially an alien computer from a civilization millions of years more advanced than us. And are we so stupid that we're supposed to believe that some absolutely ahead of us race of beings that have the capability of interstellar flight, they're so advanced, we monkeys are just able to, tap right into their computer system and pull information out of it? I think that is really a problem, right? And there's name dropping in this as well. Okay, so all of this information was acquired from the sole surviving alien occupant. But remember, previously he said that they tried to interrogate the alien and the alien would not give them any technical information. Now he goes back and contradicts himself and says this information came from this information about this technology came from the alien that he first said wouldn't give them any technical information even after being interrogated multiple times. See, this is the amateur hour problems here that we get to when you're somebody stupid like Linda Moulton Howe that's just going to read this, not digest it, not analyze it, not check it or investigate it. Even the very claims themselves are contradicting each other. That's a problem for me. Okay, so he says that information was correlated with information retrieved from the data banks of the command console panels within the disk command center. Then he says it took a full year and a half to decipher the alien language, which resembled ancient Babylonian script. But with the help of World War II cryptologists who worked with the War Department, the code texts were broken. I have a huge problem with this because a linguist would be the person you call in to try to understand an unknown language, not a cryptologist. Cryptologists deal with codes and code breaking. I suppose it sounds logical, but no, I believe that if the government was in possession of some unknown language that they wanted to decipher, they would call in world-leading linguists. They would not call in cryptologists. And again, this is another amateur hour mistake. The code texts were broken and deciphered. All the results were shared with the offices of those overseeing the project as if it was known among them General Curtis LeMay, Secretary of State George Marshall, and President Truman, and the intelligence operatives who oversaw security for the Roswell project. Then he goes on to say most of these activities were transpired at Wright-Patterson and would result in an extensive reformatting in the entire policy developments regarding potential alien contact. Upon advice of the project directors, the decision was made to incorporate a discreditation campaign on those claiming alien contact. So again, this is accepted UFO mythology. The government's covering it up. They purposefully give us disinformation to try to, send us down rabbit holes of nothing, right? Yeah. And there is other problems in here as well. Included in this last letter, this person claims that the so-called Roswell project, after they recovered this debris, called in scientists from around the world, including Russia. I call bullshit on that. I'm sorry. We had just lived through World War II, and the Cold War by 1947 was on. And the Russians would not have been called into any secret project in the United States. Go talk to anybody in intelligence. Go talk to a military historian. They will tell you that I am correct in this assessment. If you have super advanced technology that you somehow became in possession of, the last thing you would do is call in who are perhaps your greatest enemies and share all of that with them. This is a huge problem. This is a big, big problem. Right as the Cold War starts, you're going to bring in Russian scientists who are going to go tell your enemies that you have alien technology. It's not going to happen. I checked, I can check and talk to people that are in intelligence, ask them what they think of this issue. Everyone that I've ever talked to about this sort of issue agrees with me. And again, this is another amateur hour mistake. Bob Lazar made this mistake and said right at the height of the Cold War in 89 or 86, maybe, before he got to that secret base, they called in Russian scientists. No, it wouldn't happen. You don't call in your enemy and give them this incredible technology or have them have a crack at it. That's not how this works. That would absolutely not happen. There's a lot of problems, historical problems with this letter. In my opinion, having read all these, I don't believe it was a person that was really in the military that wrote these letters. And there's a few telltales that that's not the case. First of all, there's problems with the military history here. There is fantastical claims that I don't even know what to do with. Like we figured out an alien language that, by the way, according to him, was encoded, and then we cracked the code of aliens that are perhaps millions of years ahead of us in technological development. But since we had some World War II code breakers, it wasn't a problem. We cracked the code. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with them describing the United States Air Force before it actually historically existed. I have a huge problem with this Russia thing, claiming that in 1947 you brought in Russian scientists to take a look at this top secret debris. I don't think so. And I also have a huge problem with this idea that the person writing this letter is concerned that he's going to get in trouble for breaking his security clearance. He's not telling you anything that he personally would. This is garbage. This is garbage. And a real military person would know you're not getting in trouble for the Espionage Act for talking about something that a third party, now deceased, told you happened in 1947. It's just not going to happen. Now here is where it gets interesting. They show a video of a taping of high voltage testing on the business magnesium piece of Art's parts. And then he goes on to say, we only provided video clips on this website, 2 significant segments of the videotape. And again, this is live by omission. Why don't we get to see the entire tape? It says there was no need to take up valuable web bandwidth. Remember back in the day when bandwidth was really an issue? You couldn't really share big videos? Well, I guess that's a decent enough excuse. To show aluminum sitting still. So here, right on Art's website, they admit that for most of the testing, the aluminum just sat still. Now, the files are in some weird format, which is a self-running executable video file. So I wasn't able to get the video. I'm going to try to reach out to somebody who knows more about video formats than me and see if we can't get it. So here's where it gets interesting. It says this is the original camcorder video by none other than Travis Taylor, photographed Thursday, September 12th, with Emory Scientific small Van de Graaff generator. Webster's definition of a Van de Graaff generator is an electrostatic generator in which electric charge is either removed from or transferred to a large hollow spherical electrode by a rapidly moving belt. In some configurations, producing potentials of over 1 million volts and used with an acceleration tube as an electron or ion accelerator. That's not important. What's important is that they say this demonstration by Travis Taylor involved about 500,000 volts of electrostatic field with the bismuth magnesium piece compared to a piece of aluminum cut from a pop can. So there's a description of the video here, puts aluminum piece in comparison, does the same thing. Close-up of Van de Graaff generator, first with bismuth piece in it. Piece jumps vertically upward, normal influence of a strong magnetic field, electrostatic field, sorry. Bismuth moves a little by itself, sideways, not up and down. Dark bismuth side up. Travis puts his index finger down through the field to change the shape of the field to see if it would have effect on this bismuth magnesium sample. Some erratic movement toward and away from his finger. Tries a metal electrode with no significant result. More electrode moves a little. Bismuth magnesium moves by itself in considerable sideways motion and falls off insulator cap. Aluminum on insulator, no movement at all. Bismuth magnesium with black bismuth side up, nothing much happens. At 520, they say Travis flips a piece over so the silver magnesium is on top. Then there is more sideways motion when his finger enters the field. Aluminum piece back on insulator cap, Travis using finger, but aluminum does not move around like the bismuth or magnesium. And then there's a summary from Travis, and of course, that's the end of it. Now, there's a huge problem with this. So essentially, Linda Moulton Howe claim that this is proof. Because they put this thing in a very high electrical field and it moved a little bit, then that is proof that this is alien materials. Proof that this is alien materials. Folks, there's a huge problem with that. And I know this because I once had both a Tesla coil and a Van de Graaff generator. And you will find that almost any material will move, especially metal material, if you put 500,000 volts to it. And we can see that on YouTube even there are some experiments that you can see that show things moving when subjected to the electrical field of a Van de Graaff generator. I'm checking right now. We have a few examples that we could share with you. But one moment, let me make sure that we get the best one for you. I've got two of them. So I've got two examples just on YouTube of people moving things moving based on being, exposed to high voltage. One second. All right, we're going to go with the first one. All right, 1 second. I'm going to cite fair use. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public, and we'll be discussing the video that we are sharing. This is fair use. So these things are Van de Graaff generators, and that's what this person did. He subjected these pieces to the Van de Graaff generator.
What's my hair doing? Nothing. Where's the electrons going? Go to the point. My hair moves up and down. Don't know if you can see if I can feel it. I can feel it. It's more obvious.
So this is him touching 200,000 volts.
Charges jump off of points east and they jump off around it. That's why these things are round, so the cabinet charge. You know what a lightning rod is? What's a lightning rod? Pointy piece of metal. People think it's there to attract lightning. It's actually there to recharge away from lightning. Doesn't strike. In my pocket, I have that nail. It's like a lightning rod. If I let go of the point, if your ears are good, you can hear it whistle. If your eyes are good, you can see when I cover the point, and I let go of the point, my hair moves up and down. Don't know if you can see if I can feel it. I can feel it.
This is a demonstration of electric field. However, I'm here to tell you that if you put 500,000 volts on bismuth, magnesium, aluminum, tin, or anything, it's going to move slightly. And that is the only so-called evidence or proof that Linda Moulton Howe somehow has that these are alien materials. This is a real problem. This is a huge problem. And also a huge problem is the fact that other scientists who looked at this said that they were ordinary earthly materials. So as in a lot of these cases, you have to do an awful lot of mental gymnastics to believe that these are really alien materials. You have to ignore the scientist who looked at them and said, regular earthly materials. You have to ignore the fact that they all come from an anonymous source who contradicted himself and made a lot of historically inaccurate statements in the letters that he included with these so-called Roswell samples, and more, friends. Also, you have to ignore the fact that two UFO profiteering hucksters in the form of Travis Taylor and Hal Puthoff were both involved in this. But for once, I think Hal Puthoff was honest, because we're going to show you Hal Puthoff was one of the people that looked at this and said, nothing anomalous, ordinary materials, but then suggested another test. We'll get into that. We are going to cite fair use again, and we are going to go to our friend UFO Watchdog, who reported on this at the time. I believe this is from the time that Linda Moulton Howe was running around selling this arts parts as possibly alien in origin the first time. All right, we want to thank UFO John Doe. I think Lazar said Russians came to S4 because of Reagan 87 UN speech about alien enemy threat. Yeah, they couldn't crack the alien technology, so they brought in the Russians right at the height of the Cold War. UFO John Doe. I call bullshit on that. Would never happen. That would never happen. You don't bring in Russians. They were doing everything they could to keep the Russians away from top secret sites. They wouldn't on purpose just let them in. That's a bullshit statement, and so is the person in this letter claiming that. But isn't it interesting that Bob Lazar and this person both claimed that Russians were brought in to study alien technology in the possession of the United States government? I think that largely these letters to Art were repeated nonsense that have been around the UFO community for many years. There's essentially parts of Bob Lazar's story, Roswell, and more. But let's get into the next portion here. Going at a pretty good clip. We're trying to get through the whole deep dive here. So this is from UFO Watchdog. Is alleged UFO crash site all it's cracked up to be? This has to do with the actual arts parts. All right. Report compiled by scientific research technologists indicates earthly origin. Howe still says material is still an anomaly. Note, Howe has recently posted a story on her website regarding the so-called Roswell metal. You must subscribe to Howe's website in order to read the story, which I will not do, as I believe this information should be free. The following article contains little-known report from a scientific technologist who examined the metal with interesting results. Results Howe has not, to my knowledge, made public. It's interesting that Linda Moulton Howe wanted this report. She doesn't want you to see this. And there's a reason she doesn't want you to see this, because this report says ordinary earthly materials. That's not going to help her sell a story about alien metal. So she buried that report and hired other people that would say there were some strange properties to these so-called Roswell artifacts. I don't believe there was. Okay, show me the evidence. Investigative UFO science and bismuth magnesium layering of artifact from White Sands, New Mexico in 1947 with Linda Moulton Howe. Show me the evidence. Find out what it is like to investigate hard evidence when your own government says there is nothing there. Universities are scared to use their resources. Foundations will not provide funding, and peer-reviewed science is closed off. This is, of course, from Linda Moulton Howe. The amazing tale of unique layered metal allegedly removed from a wedge-shaped aerial vehicle of unknown origin at White Sands, New Mexico in 1947. Quote, I have basically exhausted every resource that I have and have tried to use from about 1940 to now. I have found no reference, even in government research, for bismuth magnesium layers. This material didn't just make itself. It had to come from somewhere, and nobody's told anyone about this material. This is from Travis Taylor, physicist working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, Redstone Army Arsenal, Huntsville, Alabama. And she used these quotes in her presentation Linda will have a physical sample of the unidentified layered metal for the workshop audience to see and touch, plus video and audio experts from her 9-year effort to find a source in the government, military, or civilian sector anywhere in the world with knowledge about layering 1 to 4 microns of pure bismuth with 100 to 200 microns of nearly pure magnesium. For more information, visit earthfiles.com. Or you can get the VHS video of about these alien metals for $24.95. Or you could buy a DVD. This was a while ago, remember, when people were still selling VHS tapes and DVD. So, friends, I just want to ask you, if you were sure that you had Roswell alien metal in your possession, would the first thing you do be to sell a VHS video about it or to sell a DVD about it? Because that's the first thing Linda Moulton Howe apparently thought of. Make a 72-minute VHS tape about these alien metals, tell the whole story of them, and then you get $24.95 a pop. So after seeing the above, UFO Watchdog just wants to remind folks of a little-known scientific report. Oh, and by the way, this brings into question all of Travis Taylor's work, because he is completely and totally wrong in his statements here. Completely and totally wrong. What kind of scientist doesn't know this? Apparently, Travis Taylor doesn't know this. A physicist, maybe we could argue that that's not his specialty. That would be a materials scientist or a chemist. But it didn't stop him from helping Linda Moulton Howe sell this garbage for $24.95. Did he get a cut of that? I'm going to ask him for an on-the-record statement. I want to know if Travis Taylor got paid to look at these metals and make these statements. I want to know if Travis Taylor got paid a portion of the $24.95 that I believe Linda Moulton Howe conned everybody for a DVD or a VHS tape about what turned out to be ordinary earthly metal. After seeing the above, okay, so in the report seen below, scientific technologist Nicholas Ryder examined the alleged UFO crash debris. He also successfully replicated the metal and presented Howe with a sample. UFOWatchdog.com was told by Ryder that Howe repeatedly scoffed at the results of the report because the replicated material was not 100% exactly like the alleged UFO crash debris. Howe has been advertised as being mysterious. Ryder stated in a letter to UFOWatchdog.com, Linda's opinion was that I had offered no resemblance to her sample, but she never did make any detailed and accurate reference to it either. Ryder also mentioned that Howe was reporting the mystery metal would move when high voltage was applied to it. Ryder stated that a piece of a soda can, or just about any metal for that matter, would move with enough voltage running through it. Certainly, I guarantee you, friends, if you put a piece of an aluminum can, if you push 500,000 volts to it, like Travis Taylor did to these samples, it's going to move a little bit. Odd that Howe would report everything showing the piece to be unusual, yet not report on the conclusions of the report found below. On a side note, the scientific technologist that compiled this report at the request of Howe is the same scientific technologist Howe used to examine the bogus Brazil UFO abduction. Howe wasn't apparently satisfied with those results and chose to use someone else to examine the materials after Ryder and another scientist concluded there was nothing unusual about this evidence. So here we have Linda Moulton Howe employing two different scientists, both who said they both said there is nothing unusual about this evidence. One scientist even replicated it. But what's the deal with Travis Taylor saying that we can't make this material? If this scientist was able to reproduce it, Travis Taylor said that we can't make this material like this. We can't do it. And he's a physicist. Could it be that Travis Taylor was compromised by being paid by Linda Moulton Howe in some way? One can speculate, how could a educated man, a learned man, an educated physicist be so wrong, saying that this material can't be duplicated? Maybe he wasn't aware that before she went to him looking for somebody to say the material was unusual or couldn't be duplicated, she found two scientists who said this was nothing unusual, this is regular earthly metals, and one scientist who actually duplicated it. But apparently not to her satisfaction, because it wasn't 100, it didn't look 100% exact to it. Okay, so Howe went on to champion the case in spite of analysis done by 2 scientists she has used in the past without question. And here's the report. The following report appears here for the first time, at least in its original form. It represents the most interesting adventure in the realm of UFO detective work. Some readers may recall the ongoing debate with the Art Bell Show in 1996 and 1997 related to the claimed fragment of the crash Roswell saucer. Yeah. Great. So it says here the metal sample was eventually returned to Linda Howe, though we retain a very tiny fragment to this day with her permission. While our analysis of the sample by SEM and EDS spectroscopy agreed with that performed at other labs, our opinion of the origin of the sample did not represent the final verdict that appeared to win out on Art Bell's show or later literary reference. We were and remain skeptical for reasons that will become apparent. Okay, so he receives the sample in a FedEx, a small artifact, and he goes on to start doing the testing. Now, I've put the link to this in the description of this video. For the purposes of time, we are going to skip ahead here. So on to composition and chemical properties. A Tractor Northern 5400 EDS X-ray analyzer was used to determine compositions of both silvery and blackish regions. The silvery region is shown to be relatively pure magnesium with a small amount for zinc, perhaps indicating about 2 or 3% of the latter. The blackish region appears to be primarily bismuth. Please reference attached EDS printouts. Again, this corroborates results from earlier EDS and SMS SIMS work done elsewhere. A small crumb of the artifact was held by tweezers over a hydrogen torch flame. It ignited and burned with the characteristic white flare of magnesium. A small curl of 99% magnesium was likewise ignited for comparison. Both appeared to burn identically. And then there's the smaller artifact, which was the aluminum that came back normal aluminum, earthly aluminum. Or was it the larger one? So we go on to nuclear properties. Questions had been raised by Linda Moulton Howe whether the materials of the artifact were common, predominant, or stable isotope. The only testing possible at this location for the purpose was a simple Archimedean volume versus weight test. The volume of the large artifact portion was determined by displacement of water in a pipette. Correcting for estimated volumes, this is where we get sciencey, folks. For zinc and bismuth, a calculated weight was derived from the artifact. Giving the textbook densities for magnesium, zinc, and bismuth, this value was calculated to be 0.5155 gram. The artifact was then weighed with the Stanton lab balance, and actual weight was over 3 trials was found to be 0.511 grams, about 0% lighter than calculated value. From this, we may say that the artifact, while possibly containing small percentages of heavier magnesium isotope, does not appear to be primarily composed of magnesium 25 or 26. Like I said, let's just get to the conclusions. At the most basic of levels, we would freely state that the artifact portion provided by Linda Moulton Howe does not seem to be composed of elements or compounds which are unknown, nor is it composed of alloys that appear to be of a purity or combination beyond the scope of current material scientists. In other words, anybody can make this today on Earth. The artifact bears a strong resemblance of irregular layered residue found in large physical vapor deposition coders. This family of filming process includes sputtering, E-beam, and resistivity heated thermal evaporation, all common vacuum processes used widely in the industry. The structure of the artifact very strongly suggests long-term high-rate disordered epoxial growth on a cold surface. So the person speculates that this is a chilled evaporant shield or chamber walls of a chilling device. He said, I've spent nearly 12 years working in the thin film and vacuum process field. Some years ago, I worked as a technician for a company in Ohio who ran the world's largest commercial E-beam coder. One of my duties was to remove chromium residue from the areas around the large E-beam evaporation sources. Hundreds of pounds of chips, flakes, and other chunks of layered chromium residue were removed at a time, usually weekends, third shift. If I had not known the composition of the artifact when first viewing the color photos of it, I would have honestly guessed that someone had done me the honor of saving me a souvenir from my old job, a chrome residue chunk from the focus magnet pole of an E-beam source. He goes on to say, rough calculations coupled with past work experience would hint that residues of the thickness of the artifact represent 80 to 120 hours of buildup time. So in other words, he thinks that this is a byproduct of some manufacturing process, possibly, right? Let's just end with his final conclusions. My own opinion is that the artifact probably represents a curious piece of industrial byproduct from the thin films industry or a magnesium casting plant. However, until a matchup is found, I will not rule out the possibility of a more unusual origin. Yes, and he also says, to date, I have been unable to find any references to uses of magnesium and bismuth together in one process or product. Linda Moulton Howe claimed that officials at Dow, one of the largest magnesium producers in the world, are unaware of any use of bismuth in their manufacturing process. Great. So he ends with the fact that his opinion is that the piece represents a curious piece of industrial byproduct. He goes on to say, in the year or so that followed the analysis by us as a sample, the mythos and mystery of the bismuth magnesium artifact continued to grow. It became a source for a wide range of speculations, some valid, some baseless, among the anti-gravity and UFO research subcultures. The extraterrestrial origin of the artifact appeared to be firmly entrenched in the minds of most who listened, read, and believed. Presumably, there aren't very many old films and vacuum technology folks out there. Claims were made by a Tesla coil enthusiast in Alabama, that would be Travis Taylor, that a portion of the artifact in his possession acted strangely and tried to levitate in the presence of an electrostatic field of a Van de Graaff generator and a radio frequency source. We did perform a separate replication here and found that our metal fragment danced about as well in the field of a Van de Graaff generator, and so did a piece of aluminum foil. Please understand that just about any small unattached mass will dance in the field of a 200,000 volt source. The mythos grew. And remember, this person tested with a 200,000 volt source. Travis Taylor used a 500,000 volt source. In 2000, one last revelation came our way on the origin of the artifact. The combination of bismuth and magnesium had eluded us for 4 years. But then one day we found reference to an obscure industrial process used in the refinement of lead. The process called the Betterton-Kroll process uses molten magnesium floated over a surface of liquid lead. The magnesium sucks up or pulls bismuth impurities out of the lead. Often the magnesium is used over and over again. Could this little-known process have revealed the origin of some unusual-looking metal residue that was then in turn promoted as a piece of alien technology? So, I think it's very important that we realize that somebody sold this lie once, but that wasn't enough, friends, because if you're going to go down the UFO rabbit hole, what you have to know is that there's only so many UFO stories to go around. And if you're here long enough, the stories begin to repeat themselves. And that, in the case of Art's Parts, is exactly what happened. Because several years ago, Linda Moulton Howe, champion for truth, who had been telling us for some 30 or 40 years that the government is to blame for hiding the truth about Roswell and those UFOs, made a deal between her, TTSA, and the United States Army, in which she would hand over samples to Tom DeLonge and to the Stars Academy Techno Scam Company, which also had Hal Puthoff, Hal Puthoff already analyzed these materials in the 90s, and he said ordinary earthly metals, nothing anomalous here. He's on TTSA, and somehow TTSA decides that they're going to buy these materials from Linda Moulton Howe for $30,000. And here's the problem that I have with the story. Linda Moulton Howe has been telling us that the government is covering up the truth about those aliens for 30 or 40 years. Suddenly, she gets a chance to make $30,000, and she's willing to hand over what may possibly be Roswell metal right to the government, to the United States Army. Does that make any sense? For 40 years, she's been telling us there's a huge cover-up. The government's lying to us. And then she says, I have proof that the Roswell crash really happened because I have samples. Here you go, United States government that's been covering up aliens for 70 years. Here you go. Here's my proof of aliens. It makes absolutely no sense unless Linda Moulton Howe knew that that shit wasn't alien material. It was normal earthly metal, just like at least 3 scientists told her. We have this person referenced in the UFO Watchdog story, and another scientist, and Hal Puthoff. That's 3 scientists. All said normal earthly materials. One guy even reproduced it. Not to Linda Moulton Howe's satisfaction, didn't look 100% correct, but materials-wise, he reproduced it. After Travis Taylor, UFO profiteer huckster, and Skinwalker Ranch profiteering huckster, said there were strange properties of these metals, and nobody can make this on planet Earth. How can a physicist be so wrong and say nobody can make this? How could he have been so wrong, friends? I don't know. But this, my friends, is what I point to when people say, well, why don't you like Travis Taylor? Why don't you believe him about all that Skinwalker science? I'm sorry. He's got a bad track record of spewing bullshit. And once somebody does that to me, I shut off, and I don't really care if they are, if they've got new information to share. If the first information that I heard from you is manufactured nonsense, and you were 100% wrong when you're supposed to be a scientist about something scientific that you should know, or was this intentionally done? That's what I thought. I don't trust Travis Taylor. I don't think he's a trustworthy individual. I think he's a profiteering huckster. So we're going to go on to the modern portion of the story now, which is Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy and Hal Puthoff buy these arch parts from Linda Moulton Howe so that they could give them to the government. You know, those people who've been perpetrating a cover-up and lying to us about aliens for 70 years. Yeah, they're going to get these Roswell debris, purported, alleged Roswell debris, that some 3 scientists said this is normal earthly metals, and then they're going to get $1 million deal giving it to the Army. It's great. Now, if this sounds scammy to you, I agree with you. I agree with this sounds scammy. How does Tom DeLonge sit there with an employee of Hal Puthoff who had already analyzed this material and found it to be ordinary earthly materials, suddenly decide they're going to buy these alien materials, alleged alien materials, and essentially make $1 million or so from the United States government to study them? Wouldn't it be clear to Tom DeLonge that these were ordinary earthly metals because his chief scientist at his techno scam company, To the Stars Academy, which, by the way, I believe that was a techno scam, they promised everybody a spaceship with a revolutionary power source that would change the world, and then they delivered nothing. And no investor that has invested in them got any of their money back, to my knowledge. If anybody has been an investor and got your money back, please contact me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. I've been trying to interview anybody that gave that techno scam money for years. Nobody will talk to me. And I know a lot of people gave them money from the UFO community. Maybe people are embarrassed because they don't want to admit that they got scammed. It's important to note, friends, that Hal Puthoff, chief scientist for TTSA, should have known that these are normal earthly materials. After all, he got a sample, analyzed it, and sent Linda Moulton Howe a letter saying, these are normal earthly materials. There's nothing anomalous here. Sorry. But somehow, Hal Puthoff, TTSA, Lou Elizondo was there as well, Christopher Mellon, and others, all hyped up this material that they had received from Linda Moulton Howe as possibly alien in origin. They called it a meta material, and more. I'm not even sure that this material meets the technical definition of a metamaterial, but that's kind of splitting hairs, and I don't really want to argue over that. Now, we're going to get to this excellent article that brings us full circle. And I reached out to this person, Anthony Bragalia, Anthony Bragalia, who has an excellent blog, and we have shared, it's called UFOexplorations.com. We have shared his blog. People ask me, who do you think is credible? Anthony Bragalia is certainly credible. And boy, does he have a bombshell of an article about these arts parts recently. And I thought, rather than reinvent the wheel, because a lot of the research that I had done correlates to his, and he's got it all written out here. We're going to cite him as a source, and a reputable source, and a reliable source, and a respectful, a source worthy of respect for integrity. This guy's not lying to you about anything. Look on his website. He does great work, and I'm very proud. I contacted him because he requires permission to share any of his material and attribution, and he said, sure, just attribute it to me. So certainly we are attributing his article to him. He's the guy who wrote it and compiled the research. I'm just lucky enough that I don't have to do this and reinvent the wheel. So the article, was the U.S. government scammed for $1 million by a company claiming to have UFO debris? Deep investigation has been conducted into bizarre agreement between the United States Army and a self-professed UFO think tank claiming to possess UFO debris. And this inquiry was uncovered a disturbing trail of possible swindle and deception, as well as alarming incompetence. In the contract agreement linked below, and by the way, I've put this in the description of the video so you can read this contract that Tom DeLonge and Hal Puthoff and I guess Lou Elizondo and the bunch, you know, the Connie bunch, right? They somehow got the United States Army authorized $750,000 and up to $1 million over time, if needed, to be spent for testing and evaluation of these supposedly novel metamaterials that were provided to them by a very controversial company. The Army hopes that the materials may have application in some very exotic areas. These include such things as creating active camouflage, achieving invisibility from visible detection by seamlessly blending into the surroundings, and in beamed energy propulsion of Army ground vehicles. That is, the U.S. Army believes that the contractor has some anomalous material that could be applied to the development of tanks and specialized vehicles that cannot be seen by the human eye and can move without fuel. If this could be successfully developed, it would, of course, give the Army an enormous tactical advantage over an enemy force. As extraordinary as all of this is, it appears that the U.S. Army did not conduct its due diligence before entering into the contract. And given what has now been learned about the contractor, its founder, and its history, it is highly unlikely that the company has ever possessed engineered material in the form of UFO debris. Their claims that it has material that could assist the Army in the creation of invisible vehicles with beamed energy propulsion are either knowingly deceptive or show gross ineptitude. And I agree with Mr. Bragalia on this point. Their chief scientist already looked at this material and decided it was normal earthly material. All of a sudden, a decade goes by, they start to the Stars Academy, and Hal Puthoff now decides that this same material could be used to help the Army in the creation of invisible vehicles and beamed energy propulsion. Hell, if it's normal earthly material. Hell, if it's just a manufacturing byproduct from a manufacturing process, if it indeed is. How could that junk garbage material, metal fragments, be used to help the Army in the creation of invisible vehicles or beamed energy propulsion? But this is what, to the Stars Academy, apparently we're telling the United States Army in order to get this contract and get this money. Okay, so the claims are either deceptive or show gross ineptitude. Of even more concern is the Army's gullibility and naivete in apparently not conducting even basic background investigation of a new contractor that has made such incredible claims. So the troubling facts are these. The company is known to be in possession of demonstrably faked UFO debris that it continues to maintain is anomalous in nature. The truth is that the material is totally terrestrial in nature. And just to interject a certain point about this, friends, if you want to know for absolute certain whether any material, whether it be aluminum, bismuth, magnesium, or any elemental material, let's say we had a chunk of titanium. If you wanted to know if that chunk of titanium originates in our solar system or in a different solar system, there are very simple tests that can be performed, and you will instantly know if that material came from our solar system or a different solar system. This has to do with isotopic ratios. The isotopic ratios of, let's say, aluminum from our solar system is always the same in any aluminum sample that originated in our solar system. So we're supposed to believe that this alien material came from the Roswell crash, which were aliens from another solar system. If that material was created, manufactured, or from another solar system, that's how fast. Sorry, I had a terrible snap. That's how fast, friends, you could find out if that material truly was from our solar system or another solar system. Now, in all the tests that were conducted, no one ever said that the isotopic ratios were not Earth-like. In fact, 3 of the scientists said normal earthly material. So were those tests even conducted? Because they're simple tests to perform. Any materials laboratory can do an elemental study with isotopic ratios and show you very, very quickly if that material originated on Earth in our solar system somewhere. So in other words, aluminum on Mars and aluminum on Earth would have the same isotopic ratios, I believe. And if it was from outside of our solar system, however, that material would have slightly different isotopic ratios. You could know instantly if this material was of terrestrial origin, originated in our solar system, in other words, earthly materials, or from another solar system. TTSA has made an awful lot of claims. Linda Moulton Howe has made an awful lot of claims claiming that these materials came from a crashed alien spaceship that came from another solar system. If that were the case, friends, they could prove it. They could easily prove that that material came from another solar system. And in all these decades, they never have. And there's a reason for that, friends. It's because that is normal earthly material that originated in our solar system, most likely right here on Earth. If it didn't, it would be very clear to any scientist investigating it and doing a real analysis on it that it came from another solar system. They would be able to prove that, and they never have. This article goes on to state, the company To the Stars was founded by a UFO-obsessed former rock star and dropout, Tom DeLonge, who admits longtime drug and alcohol abuse. Well, hey, I'm here to tell you, I was in the music business for a while. I don't think that's relevant, Anthony Bragalia. This is the one thing that I disagree with him on. I don't think bringing up Tom DeLonge's drug use and alcohol abuse is really relevant here, except to maybe impugn his character, which you don't have to go to him being a drug addict and an alcoholic, because he lies through his teeth and apparently, allegedly, steals money from investors for false promises. You don't need to go there, but whatever. Next, TTSA has no state-of-the-art research and development facilities to determine the nature of the alleged novel materials they claim to hold, and employs no metallurgists or materials engineers. Rather, the company says that they subcontract any needed analysis of this type to the outside, but unnamed labs. In other words, our basis for saying that these are alien materials or can do things like create invisible vehicles or beamed energy propulsion is based on our subcontracted scientists, right? Who nobody is allowed to talk to. Does this sound familiar? You know, the Trust Me Dude and Anonymous Source School of Ufology. So it goes on to say that many of those involved in this organization have a checkered business past. Others are academicians who know how to and who to approach to obtain government grant money in exchange for weird science. Hal Puthoff's been doing that his whole life, getting money from people to investigate weird science. My personal favorite is when Hal Puthoff wasted perhaps hundreds of thousands of dollars studying psychics and declared that Uri Geller, who used children's magic tricks, had real superpowers. That's how good a scientist Hal Puthoff is, but that's a story for another time, friends. So, so they know how to obtain the money for weird science, technical reports on theoretical exotic technologies, and paranormal phenomenon. The company has, since the contract was let, rebranded itself as an academy, from an academy to an entertainment and media organization. So it's now rebranded itself. It has nothing to do with science, but they're still going to keep the government's $750,000 to $1 million to study these exotic materials that we know through scientific investigation are all normal earthly materials. I don't understand how this is legal. I don't understand how the government fell for this, and I don't understand how nobody's been arrested in this scam yet. Next, finally, the way in which the contract should ever have been approved is revealed. A well-known former Department of Defense employee who helped lead ATIP, I disagree with Anthony Bragalia here, Lou Elizondo never helped to lead ATIP because that program never existed. But, you know, that's a story for another time as well. We've covered that extensively. A covert investigatory effort by the DoD to study UFOs, UAPs is implicated in orchestrating this peculiar contract. So in other words, Lou Elizondo was instrumental in making this contract happen. That means that Lou Elizondo is responsible for them taking $750,000 to $1 million from the United States government to study materials that they claimed could help the United States Army create invisible vehicles and beamed energy propulsion. That's quite a leap there, Lou Elizondo, who never actually ran the government's UFO program, but somehow managed to get between $750,000 and $1 million, $750,000 and $1 million out of the United States government. In October 17th, 2019, the company announced it had entered into a cooperative research and development agreement with the United States Army Combat Capabilities Development Command. The 5-year contract focuses on areas such as active camouflage, inertial mass reduction, mechanical structural metamaterials, electromagnetic metamaterial waveguides, quantum physics, quantum communications, and beamed energy propulsion. According to the U.S. Army, at least $750,000 and up to $1 million will be provided in support and resources for developing and testing To the Stars technologies. But now there's a problem because To the Stars doesn't have any technologies anymore. Now all they have is entertainment and media. So how does this work? The contract states that To the Stars will provide samples in its possession of, quote, metamaterials, unquote, any data or obtained vehicles that use beamed energy propulsion, and any information or technology related to testing and analysis and potential application for Army ground vehicles development. And you can view the entire contract. It's in the description. This page is in the description of the video. So Anthony Bragalia goes on to talk about Tom DeLonge, head of To the Stars, pictured in front of a medical marijuana dispensary in a November 27, 2021 tweet with the caption, taking classes on how to smoke pot with the whole family. And again, I'm not really sure that Tom DeLonge's drug use or his like of cannabis is a problem, but it might be because cannabis is against federal law, even if it's legal in your state. And I don't understand how somebody getting handed $750,000 to $1 million to do government research can be standing in front of a cannabis dispensary, which is federally illegal, while getting $750,000 to $1 million. You know, All right. And he goes on to say, in September 2017, the company began offering $50 million worth of public stock through Regulation A plus equity crowdfunding campaign. According to SEC filings, as of October 2018, only 1 million of those shares had been sold. I think we're up to 2 million now. And the company had a $37.4 million deficit. In other words, they were $37.4 million in debt. Now, I know people are going to argue with me. I don't want to argue with you. Nobody that invested in TTSA got their money back or made any money. They sold you garbage. They claimed that they were going to build a spaceship. Now here they're claiming that these absolutely ordinary Earth materials are somehow going to help the United States Army develop invisible tanks and vehicles and beamed energy. None of this makes any sense. Okay. 1 million of those shares have been sold, and the company had a $37.4 million deficit, largely from a stock incentive plan for its employees. So in other words, they gave out plenty of money to their employees, of which it is believed there are less than a dozen, including Delonge and his sister Carrie. His sister Carrie, we've mentioned here multiple times. She's the one who registered the website for Bob Lazar's book publisher, a brand new publisher, and used her real name stupidly. I don't think they wanted anybody to know that they were publishing Bob Lazar's book. But that's another project they're involved in. And everybody knows how I feel about the fraud, whorehouse, guy, Bob Lazar, fake scientist, right? So they're willing to push the fake Bob Lazar story to make money. Now it appears they're willing to push fake alien metals from Roswell that aren't really from Roswell. I don't believe they're from Roswell. They couldn't be if we say that Roswell was an alien spacecraft that crash landed from another star system, these metals couldn't have come from an alien spaceship from another star system because they come back as normal earthly materials, friends. Okay. To the star's prior claims and issues with their personnel do not instill confidence in the contract nor in the statements that they possess unearthly engineered material. I did not know this, but in July of 2016, Delonge shared a photo on Instagram with his followers of his secret meeting with two-term commander-in-chief of the United States. Delonge says the accompanying photo, believe it or not, is what the secret meeting looks like. He further captioned that photo, "They were waiting for my arrival. I seem to have been doing quite a lot of these lately. And yes, it is who you think it is. The image is the backside of an older man with white hair. Tom, implication is obvious. It is Bill Clinton. Of course, the man looks only vaguely like Clinton, and if this was to be such a high-level secret meeting, why is it that we are seeing men assembled in a public place?" But then he realized what he had stupidly done. Tom took a run. He deleted the photo from Instagram, but here it is archived. He said this is a two-term commander-in-chief. I don't know another two-term commander-in-chief that would look like that from the back except for Bill Clinton. So did he lie about meeting with Bill Clinton? I'd love to know it. Or did he just take advantage of a photo? Did he look at that and say, that kind of looks like Bill Clinton from the back? This is ridiculous. This whole story is ridiculous. Tom DeLonge, I agree with Anthony here. He definitely has a history of misidentifying UFO images. Anthony goes on to state the examples of this sort of thing are numerous. DeLonge has a long history of posting and often deleting photos and reports after he realized that he may be wrong. Illustrative of this is when he posted, then later deleted, a November 2012 Seattle, Washington video clip he shared of a black, very long disc-like object flying at 200 feet above warehouse-like buildings, shown conclusively to be a CGI image. Tom DeLonge also, I should interject, famously showed Joe Rogan a fake CGI video of a TR-3B flying saucer that was created by a CGI artist, 100% for sure. Next, Anthony talks about him being a substance abuser. Again, I'm not sure that's relevant. I think we have enough meat on the bones that we don't have to bring up his years-long addiction to painkillers and penchant for pot. And he says, many people reading this may know someone who has had similar problems. This information on DeLonge is not in any way given in a judgmental or disparaging way, but it is to offer perspective. This addictive personality is combined with lack of discernment, proneness to fantasy, a need for fame and money, and sense of self-importance to solve it all. Tom has no higher education and removed from his high school in the 11th grade for attending his classes inebriated. Great. Here's something that I think is very important. TTSA, after the 2020 annual stockholders meeting, they hired somebody named Christopher Miser. DeLonge, Anthony states here, DeLonge indicates that Miser leads new business development for TTSA. You can view the meeting transcript here. DeLonge extols Miser's expertise in private equity finance and business development. But had DeLonge conducted even basic reference and background checking before hiring this man, Chris Miser, he would have found Miser to have been accused by many for past financial schemes and involvement in very questionable company. This man has engaged in penny stocks and related investments for years. From Yahoo Finance Forum, we see 65 reactions to Miser's penny stock iFan, which he calls a company in the development stage that is engaged in design, development, and distribution of software for mobile payment. Founded in 2010, the company still characterizes itself as a development stage company. And I'm here to tell you, I have a startup. I started a company. It never went public, but you don't remain in development stage of a company for 12 years. That doesn't happen. Anthony Bragalia states that this is a classic con maneuver. Extend expectations of success or results year after year, stating that we're almost there and we only need investment. One dissatisfied investor in Miser writes of iFan, it appears to have flatlined for the time being, playing possum before a run. Another adds, iFan becoming totally cashless. And the damning comment, iFan is effectively a dead company for the last 2 years. All these daily trades are nothing but fake trades to mislead shareholders that iFan is still alive. I am now sure both the iFan thugs, namely Stephen Scroll and Christopher Miser, leaving behind suckered shareholders. Why would Tom DeLonge hire a guy who you can easily look up has this kind of a checkered past? Unless he wanted somebody with the skills of a schemer and a con artist to help him run an investment scam, perhaps. That's my opinion and speculation, and I'm entitled to it. According to Anthony Bragalia from this post here, quote, they lured investors first by mailing them flashy multicolored flyers and making all false claims that Google, Apple, or Facebook was going to acquire them soon, and afterwards supplying them with faulty, misleading information to support their claims. Miser is also on the advisory board of multi-level marketing company. Listen, I'm here to tell you, multi-level marketing is a scam. It's called a pyramid scheme. I don't care what you call it. Multi-level marketing companies, look them up. Every multi-level marketing company works by exploiting the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and only the people at the very top of the pyramid make any money. It's almost slavery what some of these multi-level marketing companies, how they make people work for free, barely making any money for literally years while they're investing their life savings in stupid products. Look up Nutrilife, look up Amway and other companies that have done this. Multi-level marketing companies are suspicious to begin with, and this man is involved in them. Therapeutic Solutions International, which makes health claims for their products that are likely illegal. Their nutraceutical division certainly straddles the line relative to FDA regulations, prohibiting making claims for such products being able to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Unfortunately, one of Miser's company products hints at the efficacy for COVID, which is a downright dangerous claim. Yeah, you can't make health claims related to the health pandemic with nutritional supplements. Everybody is getting shut down. Another management member of To the Stars Academy is Hal Puthoff, an ex-Scientologist and early supporter of spoonbender Uri Geller. Remember, I told you that I know for a fact that Uri Geller used children's magic tricks to fool Hal Puthoff into believing he had superpowers. And Hal Puthoff, he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. It's awesome, friends. Hal Puthoff has made money by generating impractical pseudoscientific reports for government agencies for decades. This includes Defense Department-sponsored remote viewing research to see the unseeable using the mind, a project ultimately pulled due to lack of actionable and consistent results. Also peddled a patent controversially given in 1998 for a claim to be able to transmit information over a distance using modulated potential with no electric or magnetic field components. And here's where it gets interesting. This Hal Puthoff patent that he got is still used for educational purposes, known as Puthoff's patent, to illustrate that even a competent patent examiner may fail to distinguish between innovation and pseudoscience. What Hal Puthoff does has been called pseudoscience. He is also famous for his promotion of zero-point energy, which has been criticized by well-known physicists for lack of transparency and scientific backing. And so here we have Anthony Bragalia saying it's the UFO debris that never was. DeLonge and To the Stars have an unfavorable record with the supposed artifacts. He passes off known or easily knowable items as originating from unknown aerial vehicles when they do not. Three striking examples of this UFO artifact forgery are detailed here. So we've already been through the early part of the story, right? So Anthony Bragalia tells the early part of the story, but here's where it gets interesting, right? In 2018, To the Stars Academy paid $35,000 to UFO researcher Linda Moulton Howe to purchase her art's parts. She had somehow acquired the fragments from Bell. I had the opportunity to speak with Howe recently on another research matter and slipped in a question about art's parts. I asked her, remember we talked about this earlier, if isotopic ratio analysis, the definitive test to determine if material is of off-Earth origin, had been applied to the material. She was evasive, indirectly answered, and I wondered if she even knew what such testing was. So we can't even get a straight answer from Linda Moulton Howe. Did you do the proper test that would determine 100% whether these were materials of earthly origin or something else? Ridiculous. Anthony Bragalia goes on to state here, it's disturbing too that Howe knew that the pieces were not anomalous based on testing that had been conducted by Hal Puthoff, PhD, through To the Stars, of which Puthoff as an officer had in 2012 written to Hal that the pieces were still brought to her, bought from her by To the Stars, are still held out by the organization as potentially unearthly. If Puthoff thought in 2012 that the material was conventional, why did his company still purchase it from her 6 years later? This stunning, damning letter can be seen here. And this is the first time that I saw this, so I want to thank Anthony Bragalia. Great find here. This makes no sense because in 2012, he writes, Hal Puthoff writes to Linda Moulton Howe, first, I share your disappointment that the bismuth magnesium sample did not yield any interesting anomalous outcome in the tests involving the application of various fields. They were carried out under very controlled circumstances, so I do trust the results. And then he goes on to basically say there remains yet one additional test that really needs to be done, which I recommend, that could in principle still provide a significant result, but which unfortunately we could not carry out with the instrumentation available to us. This relates to the observation that bichannels of size seen in the sample layered between bismuth and magnesium layers of the size also seen in the sample closely match, as given in the physics literature, a waveguide structure that permits sub-wavelength terahertz signals to propagate freely through the waveguide, even through sub-wavelength in size. It's a quite unique property of these specific materials and their dimensional structure due to the unusual negative refractive index. Science, science, science. So he recommends another test. And you may remember that Tom DeLonge went on Joe Rogan and claimed that if you put terahertz through this material, it floats. Here, Hal Puthoff in 2012 is suggesting that if you put terahertz frequencies through this material, something anomalous may be detected. Hal Puthoff says, meanwhile, I'm returning by FedEx, and yes, I do have a hard eye case to protect the samples. And here's something that I reported on the day it happened. You may check my Twitter or my Facebook if you like. I reported this before anybody, and that is that Tom DeLonge tweeted about being in possession of these materials. And it says, quote, TTSA has acquired multiple pieces of metamaterials that are reported to have come from an advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin. Well, if they're art's parts, they're not from an advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin. If you listen to Linda Moulton Howe, they came from the Roswell crash. Why didn't he say that? That's problematic. Also, I'm not sure that these materials meet the technical definition of metamaterials. I would need to talk to a materials scientist, so even calling them metamaterials may be incorrect. He said in his tweet, we're enthusiastic about its potential use and how it can further our mission for discovery and innovation. And he included a picture of one of the pieces, and I caught this right away. This is the picture that Tom DeLonge tweeted when he said, "We have acquired multiple pieces of metamaterials that reported have come from an advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin." And this is the picture that he shared. And this picture is from Shutterstock, and it is a picture of malachite. It's a green copper mineral material, just as Anthony Bragalia states here, found in caves that is used as semi-precious gemstone in jewelry and artwork, and for pigment that it produces. Though a good conductor of heat and electricity, silver is better. It holds no special properties for use in engineered systems. So why would Tom DeLonge tweet saying, "We have acquired multiple pieces of metamaterials that are reported to have come from advanced aerospace vehicle of unknown origin," and then include a picture of ordinary earthly materials called malachite? This makes no sense. I caught this right away and tweeted about it. I told, hey, TTSA people, don't get excited because he's using stock photos, right? It makes no sense. Anthony Bragalia goes on to state about floating material. In the past, To the Stars have alluded to some of the pieces being able to float when placed in a specialized frequency generating platform. But such material levitation properties have been known for decades and can be achieved prosaically by electrifying or magnetizing a given area in a specific way, seemingly counteracting the effects of gravitational force. And many, many years ago, Thomas Townsend Brown produced such lift with small, lightweight metal forms like some of To the Stars Academy material using effects of coronal or ionic wind, a transfer of charged electrons through the air when certain fields and wavelengths are applied, producing a modest type of suspension. These effects are achieved using conventional Earth materials and processes. No extraterrestrial engineering required. So here, I'm going to follow up with this Jeffrey Langhale. He's the guy who signed the contract for the U.S. Army for the TTSA contract. Anthony Bragalia states here, unanswered is this: what is it about the material that TTSA possesses that makes the Army believe it would contribute to the construction of invisible vehicles powered by beamed energy? The government is routinely bombarded by quacks and nutty professors with ideas and inventions that they believe could benefit the nation. Why and how did the U.S. Army get involved with this specific company? The signatory on the contract for the U.S. Army is Jeffrey Langhale. Langhale has had a long and illustrious career with the U.S. Army, based in the Military Nerve Center of Huntsville, Alabama, with a master's degree in engineering. And isn't it interesting that I believe Travis Taylor is also from Alabama? Interesting connection. He's got a master's degree in engineering. Langhale should have known better than to ever have entered into such agreement with such a company. This author reached out to Langhale several tries for a comment. No reply has been forthcoming. It is likely that Langhale is now supremely embarrassed for having ever gotten involved and spent taxpayer money on such an endeavor. And that's a reminder, friends. This is all of our money that is being wasted on this garbage. This is garbage. It's normal earthly materials. Multiple scientists analyzed it and said it's normal earthly materials. Why would the government waste $750,000 to $1 million of our taxpayer money on this garbage? Yes, and Anthony Bragalia also reached out to Tom DeLonge's sister. She too elected not to reply. And here's where this gets interesting. Remember, To the Stars Academy is a public benefit company. What public benefit is it for them to lie and claim that they're in possession of exotic metamaterials when 3 scientists looked at the material and said, normal earthly materials? How is that a public benefit? How is it a public benefit to take $750,000 to $1 million from the United States government to study materials that they know are of earthly origin, non-anomalous, regular material? It makes no sense. It should also be noted that Tom DeLonge's sister takes a salary of $150,000. And what does she do for that $150,000? She's their public relations person. But I challenge you, friends, email Tom DeLonge's sister and ask her, did they lie about these materials being metamaterials? Did they lie saying that these materials exhibited strange properties? Did they exclude or not inform the United States Army, who gave them this money, that 3 separate scientists have looked at this material and said regular earthly material? and see if you get a reply. Why is she taking investors' money from a public benefit company and then refusing to do what her so-called job is, which is public relations? Why does Tom DeLonge's sister get to keep $150,000 a year of investors' money to do a job that she's not doing? And I can show you my emails. I'm sure Anthony Bragalia would be happy to forward his emails to me, and we can display to you that Tom DeLonge's sister is apparently taking $150,000 of investors' money to be the public relations person, but she refuses to do any public relations or answer any questions about all this scammy shit that they got going on. By the way, Tom DeLonge's sister, you may also want to reply to my email about why did you people promise investors a spaceship that would, quote, have a revolutionary power source that would change the world, unquote, and then deliver none of that? What is the explanation for why you never delivered a spaceship with a revolutionary power source while you were promising that while you were soliciting investor money? None of this makes any sense. How does Tom DeLonge's sister, how does Tom DeLonge get to get $750,000 to $1 million to study materials that three separate scientists said are normal earthly material and nothing extraordinary? Why does Tom DeLonge's sister get to keep all this money every year that investors paid in good faith to invest in a company, a public benefit company? How is it a public benefit that Tom DeLonge's sister keeps $150,000 a year to be a public relations person that refuses to answer any of these very important questions? This is a big problem. And you know what? I'm filing a complaint with the SEC, because if she's going to take $150,000 of investors' money to do public relations, then God damn it, she's going to answer some of my questions for that $150,000 a year. How dare she take $150,000 in investors' money and then refuse to answer questions about all this scammy shit going on with the company that she's taking $150,000 a year from to be a public relations person? What public relations person refuses to answer questions and keeps their job, keeps their salary taken from investors? This makes no sense. Now, Anthony Bragalia goes on to say the common denominator between the U.S. Department of Defense and TTSA is a man named Luis Elizondo. Listed in the contract with the Army is a To the Stars collaborator. Elizondo was former Department of Defense employee who helped to lead ATIP. No, he didn't, Anthony, but okay. Elizondo likely used his credentials as a former DoD official investigating anomalous aerial phenomenon, something he can't prove that he did, by the way, to assist in securing this contract. Elizondo is listed as a To the Stars officer and certainly does not work for free or offer his contacts and connections to the company gratis or for free. Wow. Follow the money for the answers. And here I agree with Anthony Bragalia. You always got to follow the money. And when you follow the money, you find out a lot of things, like this very important point about Carrie, Tom DeLonge's sister, who's taking $150,000 a year, and somehow she's supposed to be public relations. You would assume she's going to answer questions and do public relations for the company for that $150,000. No, she won't answer any questions. Follow the money for answers, Anthony Bragalia writes. To uncover dishonest schemes and arrive at the truth, follow the money. And Tom DeLonge wants it. As musical tastes changed, so did the fortunes of the band DeLonge helped front Blink-182. They were most popular in 1999, over 20 years ago, when their last album did not exactly do brisk sales. They are now all 45 years or older. They are dads with families, with little appeal to late teens and 20-somethings. Former bandmates characterized DeLonge as entrepreneurial and resourceful. He likely quit the band several years ago because he knew about the difficulty of maintaining music relevancy in today's market and continuing to be able to make the kind of money to which he is accustomed. So he opted to combine his passion for cash and his passion for UFOs. Former Blink-182 bandmate Travis Barker relates that DeLonge's behavior on tour, when DeLonge was coaxed into briefly reuniting with the band some years ago, turned from distant and introverted until the money started coming in, after which he'd get excited about Blink. Anthony Bragalia goes on to write that DeLonge traded on his fame, fronted a bit of his money to attempt to make more money, and cobbled together, bought off what he thought would be a dream team. He would also pay them to study UFO sightings and films, as well as supposed UFO debris and develop revolutionary systems. And DeLonge, just as when he was a rock star on tour with a band and a website, even offers To the Stars promotional merchandise like t-shirts and mugs. I love that, right? Buy a t-shirt for my scam company that never did anything that it said it was going to do. Buy a t-shirt for my scam, techno scam that scammed investors out of $2 million. And apparently, if we believe what we're seeing here in this evidence, scammed the United States government out of almost $1 million, or between $750,000 and $1 million, and buy a t-shirt so that my sister can make $150,000 a year to be a public relations person who refuses to answer any questions about all this scammy shit that we got going on here. Now, Anthony Bragalia goes on to write, nearly 3 years into the contract with the U.S. Army, To the Stars would certainly know by now if the materials they gave the government to test were really extraterrestrial. Such tests can be done relatively quickly. They never take this long. If the debris were real UFO material, and I believe he means UFO material from another solar system, DeLonge would not contain himself. He would shout it from the rooftops. He would sell it to the highest bidder. It would be the biggest story of all time, but is instead a very troubling story. The organization was called To the Stars Academy. One of its missions was to design, quote, free energy systems. And by the way, I just want to make sure that anyone within the sound of my voice understands that in the history of people claiming that they were going to create free energy systems, no one has ever done it. People have been given millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in some cases, have been wasted on hucksters claiming they're going to invent free energy devices. Nobody ever does. You may recall that people in the UFO community love free energy scams. And I know that because we have substantial and supportive evidence that Dr. Stephen Greer ran a charity that collected over $500,000 to create a free energy device. He never created anything. He never created a working device as he promised he would when he crowdfunded $500,000 for that. Tom DeLonge has not produced a free energy device, but promised a free energy device and a, quote, revolutionary power source on that spaceship that would change the world. He promised all this to investors. They promised free energy systems that will power everything without cost or pollution and allow for interstellar flight. Formerly an academy, the company is now simply called To the Stars Incorporated, which is self-described as an independent multimedia entertainment company, founded by award-winning musician, author, and director Tom DeLonge. And by the way, I don't think he's an award-winning director. If he is, nobody's seen the films that he's done, because Jesus Christ. But that's my personal opinion. Maybe I shouldn't slag him. He tried. An entertainment company indeed. And this article, of course, is by Anthony Bragalia. The link to this article is in the description of this video. Please go over there and show him some love. He does a great job doing research. And you guys know if if I'm willing to say a guy does great work, it's probably worth your looking into. So what we have here is a long and convoluted story. By the way, I see UFO Watchdog, the original OG of busting these UFO fraudsters, is in our live chat. We shared some of your article earlier, and thank you for that. I believe UFO Watchdog told me before that I could share anything from his website as long as I credit him, so we certainly credit him. Now, I have some additional information about all this, but I can't fit it. I can't fit it all in one deep dive. I'm sorry. So we're going to be doing an update in a part 2, and you're going to love what I found, friends. Oh, it gets better. You think the story is juicy now? Oh, it gets so much better. I have found some additional information that I think is very, very important, and we'll be sharing that soon. I want to thank UFO Watchdog for being here. Yes, UFO Watchdog, I don't know if you know this, but people threaten to sue me all the time. And there was only one that came close. And that was because I did make a factually inaccurate statement about them related to their criminal past. So I had to do a retraction for the first time in my life, and then the lawyer backed down. UFO Watchdog says, out of all the clowns who said we're going to sue me or have me arrested, Moulton was the only one stupid enough to step up. And didn't you win a judgment against him? But did he ever pay you? Winning a court judgment against somebody, especially for big money, is one thing. Like if the court says, hey, you wasted this person's time, you have to pay his court costs and his lawyer fees, so we'll award him $50,000. That's one thing. But getting them to pay you the money is a whole different thing. And welcome to UFO Watchdog. UFO Watchdog says, JFC, Jesus effing Christ, I might have to get off my ass and update my website. Yeah. And by the way, I should credit UFO Watchdog because I was once a person that didn't know. I didn't know. Did you believe this? I used to just think that if Linda Moulton Howe said this guy was a Navy SEAL, then she must have checked him. She's a real journalist. He is a real Navy SEAL. Like, I didn't know to peel back the layers of deception. And one of the people that opened my eyes and taught me to do that is UFO Watchdog. So we thank him. There would be no Truth Seekers without UFO Watchdog back in the day, right? Wow, UFO Watchdog. He did pay my attorney $16,000. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, UFO Watchdog, but people threaten to sue me all the time, and I'm making wallpaper out of it. Because, you know, most of it is just angry lawyer letter. They don't have any intention of coming to my home state and suing me in my home jurisdiction. They just want to send me nasty letters and scare me into taking videos down or, you know, threaten me, you know. So I just hang them up in my office, and I got quite a collection going, UFO Watchdog. And now is a good time to remind everybody that we will not be intimidated here. You know, I'm getting better at being a little more professional and not, you know, just yelling and screaming accusations at people. But when there exists ample and supportive evidence that people are conning people or scamming people, I'm going to feel comfortable in saying that, in my opinion, this is a con. In my opinion, this is a scam. You may think differently based on the available evidence. All we can do here is provide you with all the evidence, make sure that you're 100% fully informed of all the evidence, something the UFO hucksters hate. They hate it when you have all the information. They only want to give you the half that makes their story plausible. They don't want to give you the information that makes their story look like it's garbage and bull. Yeah. Spectral International does not condone, suggest attacking or otherwise harassing persons covered in this show. No, we don't. But I do encourage people to respectfully ask questions. Don't harass anybody. Don't anything like that. But considering that all of our money is being wasted on these so-called arts parts that we know are normal earthly materials, I think that it would certainly be within, you know, it would be perfectly acceptable for you to reach out to Army spokesperson or the guy who signed this contract and demand that you get some sort of a statement. What I'm doing is I'm going to ask him for a statement, and I'm going to ask Carrie, Tom DeLonge's sister, for a statement about all this. And if they refuse to do it, I'm going to up the ante. You know, one of the things about government employees is everybody's got a boss. So if one government employee is going to ignore you, Anthony Bragalia speculated that guy wouldn't get back to him because he was embarrassed that he got involved in this scammy shit. It looks bad for him being the guy that signed off on this garbage. Yeah, here, I'm going to sign off on giving $1 million to a company that claims they might have alien materials that have already been proven 10 years ago to be normal earthly materials. It doesn't look good for him. But if he won't answer my questions, I'm going to find out who his supervisor is, and I'm going to ask him. And we're just going to go up the chain. And actually, I think it is a good idea. By the way, the porn bots are here. You know it's a party when the porn bots are in the live chat. I'm going to keep going up the chain, and that may be a good opportunity. I'm going to record the whole thing while I make all these phone calls so that people could see. Sometimes this sucks. Doing this, you know, it's hard to have evidence. It's much easier to be one of those rambling show hosts that just talks nonsense and didn't actually do any work. Yeah. Yes. Word salad. Everyone has a boss. Yes. Who's in charge? So we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. Sweet Caroline is here. Nice to see you. Member Sweet Caroline. Always good to see members. By the way, there's a join button now. You can become a member of Truth Seekers. So, friends, it's been a long broadcast, and I am out of liquid beverage. I've got a tickle in my throat. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to take a short musical break. And when we return, I will take comments, questions, and all of that from the live chat. But before I do, I want to remind everybody, if you're listening in audio podcast land, you're missing half the fun. We love and appreciate all you people listening in audio podcast land, but go on over to YouTube, hit that search bar, the magnifying glass, and put Truth Seekers, one word. Look for me, the strange guy with the sunglasses. That would mean that you have found our channel. We're the first result that comes up. Make sure you put Truth Seekers, one word, into the search bar. Smash that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you too will know when we're doing a live taping for the podcast. Come on over to YouTube, be in our live chat with like-minded people. You can ask questions, comments, the works, right? Stale Zemsty is asking, has Buddy agreed to come on your show? No, and several of us have asked him to, including Sixth Sense and myself. We haven't gotten him to agree, but I'll email him again, just for you, Stale. You'd love to hear from him, huh? I think he's a terrible psychic. I don't know why I want to hear from him, but I do what the audience wants, and several people have told me they want to hear from this remote viewer that helped Linda Moulton Howe sell those fake alien pictures as real. He remote viewed the death of an alien from a photo that was an artist recreation. Awesome. Yeah, and I can also remind you there's a few ways to help our show. The first way, of course, is to throw money at me. There is a super chat button. By the way, when I return from the short break, we're going to read all the super chats. So get them in now, friends. Super chat, what is that? That's the money button down there where you can throw a couple of bucks in my hat and keep us producing good shows like this. We are one of the few shows that doesn't give a pass to anybody. We tell you the truth. We're not out here lying to you. We don't work for a hoax company that's been caught pushing fake UFO videos for years. We don't make excuses for fake hoax UFO companies on YouTube that, make thousands of dollars posting videos of, videos that they know are space debris while they sit there and pretend that it's a UFO. We don't do that kind of thing here. So if you want to support good work, throw a couple of bucks in our hat. There's a super chat button right down there in the live chat. So what can I say, friends? We have our musical friends Bong, who we haven't heard from in a while. By the way, if they're listening, I need new music, so send me some new stuff. Tonight, Bong will be our musical guest, and here is their excellent song, Destroy All Humans. When we come back, we're reading all the super chats. We're going to read all the PayPal pledges and Cash App. There's instructions to do that in the bottom of this video. If you're feeling generous, I appreciate each and every one of you who are so kind and generous. We will read every single pledge. You can also join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month, get some extra content, or become a member. Just hit the join button here on YouTube to become a channel member for $5 a month. And here, becoming a member, you get all the Patreon content we post to our member section here, and you also get a member badge and some other YouTube goodies recognizing you as a big supporter of the show. So I'm going to hop on out of here and get a liquid beverage, friends, and still a non-alcoholic beverage. I think we're up to day 68 of me not having alcoholic beverages. I'm going to go get something to wet my whistle. We'll be right back, friends. Here's our musical friends Bong with their wonderful song, Destroy All Humans.
The prophets of old
Welcome back, friends. So we're going to check in to into our PayPal here to check on PayPal pledgers. I think we have. Yes, we do. Where did that go? There we go. Oh no. All right, listen, I say that I read everything somebody sends me when they send me a pledge. So we have to thank Dennis for kind and generous $22.99. Complizaire, longtime show supporter, been with me since the Midnight Hour show days when we were just audio podcast, I believe. Longtime show supporter, and he says, "Hey Stephen, brother, me has to play and stop your show while tonight enjoying it from at work, but." Therefore, and by the way, he's, I believe that he is German, so his English is a little off here. Let me see. It says, therefore, you and me are no bitter, angry, lazy, slop, and goofy dudes, aka like third scam of their hoax. Therefore, take these $20 for the truth. I love Truth Seekers for Life, demo complizaire. And he gave us a kind and generous $24. Thank you very much for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. All pledges go directly to the show and help us. And again, demo complizaire with another kind of generous. He says, one more buck because forgot to add no lazy goofball. Okay. Well, thank you very much, our friend from Germany, demo complizaire. We appreciate your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. And we also have John with a kind and generous $5 pledge through PayPal. Again, instructions to do that are in the description video if you're feeling generous. It says, congratulations on 500,000 views. Like I said in my email, keep up the good work. No reply necessary. Well, we believe that everybody who sends us some kind and generous support deserves a reply, and we give a reply to every single person. So my reply is, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. And thank you for your continued support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. Now, I don't believe we have any Cash App. By the way, if somebody knows, how do you get money out of Cash App? I got to figure that out. We just let it roll. But I've never taken anything out. I look into that. So we're going to go over to the super chats, which is the money button down there in the live chat. And oh boy, we got a lot of them tonight. Let me share my screen here. We recognize every one of you kind and generous people for helping us to praise the cash. And tonight there was a bunch of it, so we thank you. Yeah, we begin with unidentified S4 with a kind and generous $1.99 super sticker purchase. What is that? That's a microphone. That's right. I use my microphone as a passport to you, and it allows me to connect with people all over the world. Always had a fascination with microphones, unidentified S4, and I suspect you did too, being a show host yourself. Loved radio growing up, even experimented some with CB radios and ham radios, but I mean, I just liked radio in general, listening to talk radio, especially growing up listening to Art Bell, Howard Stern, and others. We used to have a talk radio station in Philadelphia, WWDB. Still remember the call letters. Loved that show. Loved a bunch of shows on there, being an insomniac. We have UFO John Doe with kind and generous 99-cent super sticker. Looks like shit. I think it's poop. Did you super sticker us poop? Yes, he did. UFO John Doe, longtime show supporter. Also with a kind and generous $4.99 super chat says, I think Lazar said Russians came to S4 because of Reagan 87 UN speech about alien enemy threat. I believe that you are correct. Al Warrior is here, longtime show supporter with a kind and generous $2 super chat says, expose the truth. That's basically what we do here. And thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and support. UFO John Doe, once again. Stephen, do you think Tom DeLonge is a useful idiot, or do you think he's being used? I'll hang up and listen and take your comments off the air. Well, I thank you for your kind and generous $5 super chat once again. I appreciate all of your kindness to us. It really does matter. So thank you. I believe that Tom DeLonge is a useful idiot of a CIA psyop. After all, if you look into TTSA, not me, someone much smarter than me and much more versed and educated in the matters of the black world and the CIA, dark journalist, figured out that there was over 100 hours of combined CIA experience on the board of directors at To the Stars Academy. I believe To the Stars Academy has to be some sort of government op or psyop, because normal people can't get away with this level of connery and scammery. If I were to run an investment scam like this and tell people things like, I'm going to create a spaceship with a revolutionary power source that'll change the world, and then I don't do it, and I take $2 million in public investment, I would end up in federal prison. If I were to tell the United States Army, we have this advanced metamaterial from an advanced aerospace craft of unknown origin, possibly alien, and then I took $750,000 to $1 million from the United States Army to study material that I actually knew was normal earthly material and not indeed anything special, I would end up in federal prison. So there has to be a reason why Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy members have been able to get away with this. And you guys know how I feel about this. I believe that it's consumer fraud too, to push fake alien stories on people for money when you know that they're not true. And I believe, in my opinion, even people like Elizondo should be held responsible for lying to the New York Times, for lying to the general public, claiming that he ran a government program that we now know was not a program. He lied and said it was funded to the tune of 22 million. No, it wasn't. It had no funding. He lied many, many times, and then he took money from people that run UFO conferences to speak, since he ran a government program that was funded to the tune of $22 million, except that he didn't. How does he get away with that? What I would only consider, based on my observation, and again, I'm not a law enforcement officer, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it looks like consumer fraud to me. How is Lou Elizondo able to get away with that? How is Tom DeLonge able to get away with swindling the general public out of $2 million, promising everybody a spaceship and free energy? The only explanation that I can come up with, and again, I understand that I'm sort of a conspiratorial person, is that it is a conspiracy, and that To the Stars Academy was from the beginning a CIA-sponsored psyop designed to infiltrate, take over, and the UFO community and take over the discussion. For the years that To the Stars was running, that's all everybody was talking about was To the Stars Academy and what they were saying. And everybody was ignoring most other UFO research, even very credible research. There's something just not right with the fact that some people can literally perform criminal act after criminal act in public, on the public record, committing criminal acts, and face no criminal prosecution or no consequences. Folks, if I ran an investment scam exactly like Tom DeLonge and his CIA friends and Hal Puthoff and Elizondo did, the SEC would intervene immediately, and I would likely end up in federal prison. That's my take on it. I could be wrong, but you can't just tell people ridiculous things when you're soliciting investor money, like you're gonna create a spaceship and free energy, and then deliver on nothing of the promise. Just as I think you can't pay your sister $150,000 a year out of investor solicited money, and then she doesn't actually do any actual job. She's supposed to be the public relations person. Why isn't she answering questions about all this stuff? She's their public relations person. She's taking $150,000 a year. If you did that or I did that, we would be criminally prosecuted for stealing money from investors and not performing the duties that we are claiming. Not her. Tom DeLonge's not getting prosecuted. Nobody from To the Stars Academy, to my knowledge, has been prosecuted. To my knowledge, there are some I've been told, now I'm not sure about the veracity of my sources, but I have been told by several different people that there are some lawsuits that are going to be happening involving members of To the Stars Academy, and that there is some sort of criminal investigation into all of it. But I've been told that several times. And then, by the way, the same source told me, well, a lot of that investigation got stalled because of COVID, but they're picking it back up. All I can do is the source seems genuine in their belief that they may be under criminal investigation, but take from this information what you will. I was only able to find one good source that said that, and I consider them a good source, but I could be wrong. Sweet Caroline with a kind and generous $4.99 super chat saying, showing some love, Stephen. Missed you, man. And we missed you, Sweet Caroline. Glad to see you back here. You are most welcome. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your continued support of the show. Thank you for being a longtime show supporter. And we have somebody else here, I believe. Let me get over to the live chat. Yes, we do. We have a kind and generous $5 Canadian from our Canadian friend IR Film. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. He says, keeping it real, bro. Yeah, if I ever start scamming people with fake alien pictures, somebody shoot me. You have my permission. Kill me. Put me out of my misery if I'm just going to wake up and lie to people every day to make a living at this. And, I always joke we are handicapped here, because trying to do this the honest way is like trying to run a marathon with two broken legs, right? It's difficult. Everybody else, and I hate to say it, but largely most of the other UFO shows are on the take in some form or another. They're giving people passes for hoaxing videos because they can get subscribers or viewers, or they're making deals. They're keeping their mouth shut. The sin of silence is very, very prevalent in this thing. People keep their mouth shut because they want to get in on the con too. And you should not tell people that somebody's full of shit, because you may be called out for being full of it as well. If you start naming names, and we do here, we name names, we show you the evidence, and we let people make up their own mind. Now, I can't do anything about some of these true believers, because Jesus, some of these people are brutal. With the mental gymnastics, well, they got to bring in the men in black. Maybe people switched out these arts parts and they were really from Roswell, but people, broke into Linda's house and stole the original parts, and that's why they came back normal earthly. Come on. I really do believe in the principle of Occam's razor. And that is the simplest explanation tends to be the right one. Could it be that maybe these were just some crackpot that was having a laugh at Art Bell, mailing him a bunch of junk metal, claiming it came from Roswell? By the way, as we've seen, those letters were filled with problems that a real investigator or investigative journalist would spot as being really problematic. Linda Moulton Howe didn't investigate any of that. And she didn't even catch the problems that I caught with them. And by the way, I didn't study those letters. I read them, once before broadcast, but they were very easy to point out. There's some real problems with the statements being made here. And she didn't do any of that. She just ran and told everybody this was Roswell metal. Give me your money. And then good for her. She made $30,000 selling a bunch of metal junk to idiot Tom DeLonge, who then made $750,000 to $1 million selling the same metal junk, worthless, garbage, junk, earthly metals to our United States government. Great. And I think as taxpayers, all of us should call that guy listed on Anthony Bragalia's website. But again, I'm not condoning anybody harass anybody, but certainly we should have the right as taxpayers to ask him questions and to see if he knows about all this. And if he's going to retract, do they have to keep, I don't know. Do they have to honor the contract if they find out that the contract was entered into, if they were deceived and lied to and manipulated and given false information in order to get the contract? Wouldn't that be like, I don't know. If I was the government, I would just step on their dicks immediately. I would say, you lied to us. We want our money back, or you're getting criminally prosecuted. But that's me. You know, I don't know how this works. I don't understand how people get away with this level of fraud. It doesn't make any sense to me. Sweet Caroline says, apparently telling lies pays well. Yes, Sweet Caroline, it does. Joe says UFOs are still real. Just the ET thing is most likely BS. Well, you know, I had an experience myself as a child. That's why I'm here, Joe 5D. I wouldn't be here if not for a childhood experience. Changed my life, sent me down this never-ending rabbit hole of bullshittery, mostly bullshittery. But here I am. I believe that the phenomenon is certainly real. People see unidentified things in the sky all the time. But I think that the UFO huckstering con artists and profiteer people have ruined this thing. It really, really has ruined this thing. So comments or questions for me, please put them in all capital letters. We'll take some comments and questions before I bounce on out of here. Marius Seiko says, congratulations, Steve. I think he's talking about the 500,000 views we just hit. So, yeah, good. Jeremy Walter says, this is a dope look. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. We'll be moving back. I can't wait. 3 or 4 more weeks, and I'm moving back to the place I prefer to work, which is my office. This is kind of a ramshackle area to work in because of the heat situation. For those that don't know, my normal office is in an attic room. And in the summer, it is so hot up there, even with the air conditioner blasting. You can stay in there if the air conditioner's on high blasting the whole time you're in there. But I can't have an air conditioner blasting during the show, so you could turn it off, and in 15 minutes it becomes unbearably hot in there, and you'll die. So we escaped to another area of the homestead here, a temporary area, but we'll be going back, and I can't wait because I had some time to work on the office, really work on it, get everything dialed in. We've got new screens, background screens. We've got more camera angles. I think we're up to 6 now and more. Can't wait to move back there. Chris Johansson said, hey, wait, Linda said she sold that for $35K, but that's what she spent on testing it. DeLonge sold it to his company for $750K. No, what happened is after making thousands and thousands of dollars running around at UFO conferences claiming that was debris from the Roswell crash, and alien metals with absolutely no proof. And actually, even after several scientists told her that it wasn't alien in origin, it was normal earthly material, she still conned people and claimed it was alien metals, which is impossible if real scientists determined it was earthly metals. So then she holds on to it, and I believe it was in 2018, she sold it for $35,000 to the Stars Academy, who should have known that it was normal earthly metals because their chief science guy, Hal Puthoff, who's a crackpot joke of a scientist who thought that magic tricks were real superpowers in the form of Uri Geller. Anyway, that guy analyzed this stuff in 2012 and said that it was normal earthly materials, and he didn't find anything mysterious or anomalous, but suggested further tests. Somehow they bought the material from Linda Moulton Howe for $35,000, and then To the Stars Academy got a contract to study the material in partnering with the United States Army, because the Army was led to believe that they could develop invisibility technology for tanks and other vehicles and other incredible science fiction-like technology from these fragments that they had. So somebody's got some splaining to do, Chris Johansson. John Martin, UFO and ET Intelligence says, I film them regularly. Did you receive the compilation I made for you? Yes. And I'd like to have a conversation with you, John Martin. So I will email you after tonight's broadcast. And you and I have to have a conversation because I love the videos that you sent me, and I would love to share them, but I'd like to get some context and ask you a few questions. Then I'd like to share the videos here on my channel and see what people here think. And then I'd like to have you as a guest to explain to us how the hell you're able to. This guy, for those who don't know, you can go visit his channel. John Martin sent me some incredible UFO footage, and I just need to know more. I want to know more about how he captured them, how often he captures them, what is his process for capturing them. Because I've done sky watches and have never seen anything quite as spectacular as what you've showed me. But I will caution everyone and say, I'm no image analyst, right? And I could be fooled just like anybody. So I want to be clear in saying that I'm not saying what he sent me was alien spacecraft, but it is extraordinary footage that I cannot explain. I will go that far so far. Jeremy Walter is here and says the intro trailer was really cool. Think about how many film productions have been created since Roswell to create UFO disinfo with our tax money. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Jeremy Walter. And Sixth Sense is kindly sharing John Martin UFO and ET Intelligence YouTube channel. Happy to give him a plug. Send me some more stuff. Marios, I'm sending you good vibes your way. I hope you find employment soon. I was in the same boat, but I got a job offer and signed my paperwork today. Well, congratulations, sweet Caroline. And I did not know that about Marios Taco. Or is it Taco? I will put him on my prayer list, and I will pray for you every day, Marios, to get a job you like. I will pray that you get the best job and highest paying job you've ever had in your life, and job that you enjoy the most. He says, sweet Caroline, I have something in mind, but we'll see in the next 2 months, I guess. I hope I will get a job soon, and we all hope you will get a job soon. I will be on a new season of The Proof is Out There. I have many on my channel. Yeah, I'm going to look back into it. I certainly will do that. So, boy, we've been here almost 3 hours. I'm going to try to cut things short here. I saw a lady that tested it 30 years ago tell Linda it was ordinary Earth materials. Yes. Yeah, she was told 30 years ago. So would it be considered a form of consumer fraud that she didn't tell the people who wanted to buy it for $35,000? I'll sell it to you, but these scientists all said it was ordinary earthly material. I'd like to know why that's not a form of fraud. I don't know. We got to get a lawyer in here to try to, especially a lawyer with criminal experience, to try to explain to us how these UFO grifters are able to make tens of thousands of dollars off of bullshit, because that's what this all boils down to. And forget tens of thousands of dollars. Linda Moulton Howe made tens of thousands of dollars plus the $30,000 to purchase the materials from her. She made thousands and tens of thousands of dollars probably running around at UFO conferences talking about this material being alien when it wasn't, when it isn't and wasn't. She's an amateur, though, at grifting off of fake alien metal, because apparently Tom DeLonge's the master at it, because Tom DeLonge, Lou Elizondo, Hal Putoff, Chris Mellon and friends managed to get the government to give them $750,000, between $750K and $1 million, to partner with them to study these materials to develop technology for the United States Army. Wow, this is a real problem. This is a huge problem for them. And as I said, we're going to be doing a part 2, but it may take a while for people to get back to me. But I promise you that I am not going to let up. I want an answer to my question. Somebody in the United States Army is going to answer some questions about this for me. And we will certainly bring you that information as soon as we get it. I do have some other additional information, but I'm still developing and doing some cross-checking and trying to get secondary or third sources for some of the information that I found about this story, right? So, yeah, friends, so that's all we got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive, but we didn't get to the end of the rabbit hole. We try our very best to get to the very bottom of the rabbit hole. In this case, we're almost there. There's just a few things that I do want to add to this story. And so we'll be doing a part 2 probably in the next 2 weeks. And I will share the additional information I found, and I will also share the results of me demanding answers as a taxpayer from the United States Army about how they fell for this garbage. I'm also going to be calling some law enforcement people and trying to explain this to them and have them explain to me how this is not some form of fraud. We have to get more information from government sources here in order to break this down. So we're almost to the bottom of the rabbit hole. What happens next is anybody's guess. Is anybody going to jail over this? I don't think so. Probably not, and that's unfortunate. Do I think somebody should go to jail for this? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, and again, this is my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion, especially as an American taxpayer looking at this situation going, somebody had to have lied to the United States military, or somebody had to have purposefully neglected to tell them that 3 scientists looked at this and said, normal earthly materials, nothing extraordinary here. I mean, something's not right here. That's why, like I said, we're most of the way down the rabbit hole, but there's a little bit left that we have to finish in order to finish this story off. And I will do my due diligence as we always do here, and I will report the results back to you. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And the porn stuff is back. Sweet Caroline, the next live stream is 9 p.m. tomorrow evening. And the Sixth Sense is here. Do something about the porn bots, man. People are complaining about the porn. I don't know why. We get attacked by... You know what's funny? If I do an interview show, no porn bots. If I do a show about a topic that I think is real and not, busting frauds, no porn bots. Every single time we do a show busting one or more of these UFO fraudsters, UFO celebrities, scamming people for fake shit, we get our live chat gets ruthlessly attacked by porn bots, advertising porn channels. I don't know why that is. Somebody needs to explain that to me too. Are we under attack by UFO celebrities disguising themselves as porn people? Are we under attack by the CIA, who doesn't want us informing the public that these are the UFO scams that are taking place to try to convince people that this is all aliens and not top secret technology that they're keeping under wraps? I don't know. But it does seem strange to me that we only get attacked by porn bots when we're going after these fraudsters. Imagine that. Yeah. Jeremy Walter asked, do you think sending somebody to jail rehabs them? I don't know. I mean, in a perfect world, it does. I think we have to look to those, what are they called? Not the Slavic countries. The countries like Denmark and Sweden and Iceland. Go look at their penal system. You go to jail there, you work on yourself the whole time, and they give you resources to actually rehabilitate you. Here, they just throw you in a tin box and punish you. They don't really try to rehabilitate you. So who knows? I know several friends of mine that I grew up with. Remember, Jeremy Walter, I grew up on the mean streets of Philadelphia. And I mean the mean streets in some places that I've lived. And many people that I have known have ended up in prison for various criminal activity, drugs and thievery and fighting and assault and, all kinds of stuff. And I'd say about 50% of the people that I knew that ended up in the pokey came out and did not reoffend. Like, they learned their lesson, they made a stupid mistake, and then they went on the straight and narrow. But the other 50% just kept on being criminals, and not caring about going back to prison. So, I don't really know. Electromagnetic Frequency is here asking, it's over. Yeah. More or less. We're wrapping things up here. But that's what replays are for. But we welcome you, Electromagnetic Frequency. I think you'll enjoy tonight's broadcast. You're happy to... you're welcome to rewind. That's what the replay button is for. So, friends, that's all I got for you tonight. And as I said, we'll be returning sometime with a part 2 once I finish getting the additional information that I want to provide, like asking government sources, why is this allowed? Why is nobody being criminally prosecuted here? We're going to be doing that, and I am not going to let up until I get answers from the government about this whole situation. I want to know, and I want my audience to be able to know, and I will be taking all of you with me, friends. So that's all I got for you. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night. God bless all of you.